traveling around with Antonio Corolla. World Championship, you'll fly to Qatar, and most of the guys are on the plane and stuff.
Yep.
And I remember when Villapoto come over, because I was teammates with Tyler Radray.
Yep.
The first year when Husky was a thing.
Okay.
Then he went Kawasaki, and Ryan come over.
Yeah.
And Ryan was just blown. He's like, man, we're in the airport, and the dudes are just eating French fries.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep.
Like, and he was like, no sugar diet. Like, it was like, the Americans are just like, and I get it, but then you got dudes in Europe that they have like a wonderful life, you know.
Absolutely.
Like they probably train harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like riding wise,
yeah.
Them, man, like just a GP weekend is 2 days. Like it's physical.
We bring this up closer, Todd. We might as well just keep rolling here. I got Robb Beams and Todd Waters here. We'll do a bit of an intro once Todd's done on this story. Keep going. It's good shit. Put your headphones on if you want. Yeah, so Robb Beams is in the house. Oh, I'm going to turn these down a little bit. It's not super gnarly. Yeah, so Robb Beams is in the house with my homie, mate, good bud, pal, Todd Waters. The champ is in the building, and it's kind of cool. We'll go back to where you were, Toddy, but kind of cool how this come about. Robb Beams is the one of the MVPs of the Gypsy Tales podcast, the people's champ, I like to call him. Todd Waters, obviously Todd Waters, but these two, actually, I want to kind of hear the story, because you guys kind of started talking a little bit on social media, right? And then Todd and yourself wanted to actually do the podcast together, which I thought was pretty cool. So first, we'll get back to where Todd was, but welcome, Robb.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for coming in once again.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm excited. This will be a cool podcast. I don't think I'm gonna have to do a lot for this one. So I'm excited to just sit back and listen for a change. I kind of feel like I do just sit back and listen when Robb talks, but this will be pretty sick. So, Toddy, what were you? So you were talking about like the way that the European guys train is different to the US dudes.
Yeah, so obviously, first of all, like Robb coming here, it's amazing. It's I listened to your podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate
you did with Jason, and like I just touched on before, I spent a lot of time at Red Bull DTC in Europe, and at the end of the day, I was just a young Aussie kid that just, you know, I had 2 OGO gear bags, 21-year-old kid, signed for one of the biggest GP teams in the world, and little did I know when they sent me the contract, it was for Husqvarna, and I was like, man, I don't know about this. Mm-hmm. You know, like the old Husqvarnas.
Yes.
And I kind of thought, man, I don't know if this is a good thing. And it was just like word of mouth at first.
Yeah.
Rob Tyrell, who managed the team here, I was with Factory KDM, and he ran a really successful team here, and I love working with Robbie T. So he said, no, it's going to, you know, KDM have bought it, it's taking over, blah, blah. So, yeah, I literally just jumped on a plane with 2 gear bags over there. I had, man, when I went training, I trained hard.
Sure.
Like, I kind of touched on before with yourself, how I met my fiance was an ex-cycle trainer who's Hamish Guy, and he taught me how to train hard. It almost felt like a beep test every time I went for a cycle, even on a recovery cycle, because it was an elite group of young cyclists.
Sure.
You know, my fiance, she represented Australia for cross country, mountain biking, and did some World Cups in Europe, and 2 of the guys, you know, one of them got 3rd in the World Championship. So
that's cool.
I'm hanging on to these dudes.
Sure.
And then I'm riding in the afternoons, and then I'm racing on the weekends. So I just thought you just went, if my legs were burning, happy days.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to win this weekend. You know, I'm putting in.
Yep.
Little did I know when I went to Red Bull, they're like, no, you've, like, I did base fitness tests and stuff, and we all sat around a table like this. Robert Jonas, who's the head of Husqvarna, there was Berta from Red Bull, and then, like, you had your physio and your psych and your trainer, and Mickey was his name, trainer. Like, I miss those guys. I spent a lot of time there, and it's a wonderful group of German people, and I'd never even heard anyone speak a different language before. So I'm sitting there, and they're kind of speaking like English, German English, and Mickey goes, yeah, your physical fitness is not where it needs to be. He goes, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. And he's like, you have zero base fitness, like very poor, but I must give you can hold high heart rate for a very long time, like, because that's all I did.
That's right.
Just maxing out everything. But obviously, because I trained like that, I had no base fitness. I knew nothing about that stuff. I said, oh, that's good news, guys. And they all just looked at me like Robert Jonas and that. And I'm like, well, I just did good at the Des Nations, crashed in the first corner and come back to fifth at Lommel. And that's what gave me the ride here. And so I'm a top 10 dude here in the World Championship, and I'm the most unfit dude you've seen.
I love it. That's great. That's awesome.
I'm like, we got stuff to work on. So from there, it escalated really quickly, like a lot of learning curves. Like, I'm not sure if you've experienced it personally, but when you train at a high heart rate for a long time, when they say, oh, go for a 90-minute cycle at 130 heart rate, I'm like, man, I need to call someone. Like, I'm not even puffing. Like, this is, and I'm phoning them up all the time. Like, are you sure this is right?
There's
like,
the key.
I'm not
You're
working
doubting
hard.
it. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
So what's that do then if you're just training, say, at like 130 heart rate for 2 hours? Like, what's the theory behind that or the thinking behind it?
And it goes back to like you're talking about the heart rate zone. So let's just assume heart rate zone 2 is 130 and below. If you're using the number of 130.
Yeah.
If you think about the roots of a tree, as you train at a lower heart rate, you increase the amount of capillary beds inside the muscle tissue. You cannot do that at anaerobic threshold training. So if you watch the Tour de France, those guys will go out, for a 40K time trial during the tour and absolutely shred it. But if you look at them in the October, November, December, they're riding at 20 kilometers an hour. I'm using that number loosely for 6-7 hours a day for that exact reason. Now there's an additional benefit to that, and that is the metabolism and the utilization of body fat for fuel. When you hear the idea of spare the glycogen to leverage body fat for fuel, when you go into those lower zones, when you only get acclimated to that red line zone, I want you to think about it almost like your exhaust pipe. If you're sitting there and the bike's on the stand and you've got a red line pinned, think about the amount of exhaust that's coming out. Well, when you bring that high intensity training into the equation, the difference between the human body and a motorcycle is the motorcycle has an opening exhaust pipe. We work on a closed circuit. So when he's doing all the what we call HIIT, high intensity interval training, think about the amount of metabolic byproduct that's coming out of it. Well, the body isn't going to build capillary beds in a relaxed state because it's trying not to die. Let's put it that way, pretty loosely. So when you're going out and they're having you do the low intensity training, and I love what you said, it seems counterintuitive. I'm an elite athlete. I'm top 10 in the world. I'm on this elite level. Why would I want to train the lower end? Well, the lower end is where you increase the capillary beds, you increase the aerobic function, and you utilize body fat for fuel. And you say, well, why is that relevant to an elite athlete? You've got to go back to the idea that increasing the capillary beds in the muscle tissue gives you the avenue for oxygen to get into the working muscles, and it gives you an avenue for the lactic acid to come out of the system. Well, if you don't do the base training and you don't enhance that capability to get oxygen in and lactic acid out, when it comes time to doing speed work, your closed circuit is somewhat limited. I think we talked a little bit about this on the last show. Think about your strength base as the size of the bore. Think about your carburetor as your aerobic engine. So when they've got Todd going out and they're doing, I'm using numbers loosely. We didn't speak about this off the record, but 2 or 3 hour bike ride at heart rate zone 2 or below, teaching the body to spare glycogen, use body fat, increasing capillary beds, and increasing aerobic function. I've said this before, until you go long and slow, you can never go short and fast. Now, short and fast is relevant. I mean, 30 plus 2. I mean, that's not a short race. I'm not insinuating that whatsoever.
But in the grand scheme of like what they do on like Tour de France and stuff like that, then that is like a short.
That's the idea. Until you can go long and slow, you can't go short and fast, because without the capillary beds, without the aerobic engine, and without the strength base. So if we're looking at periodization, breaking up the year into performance cycles, preseason could be anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks long, depending on your race schedule. What we're looking for is maximizing physical strength, maximizing aerobic engine. This is the part that elite athletes don't want to do. What they have to recognize is if we do that for 8 to 12 weeks, when we go into pre-competitive phase. And just for the listeners, so they get the gist of it, you have preseason, pre-competitive, competitive, and you could have up to 3 to 4 competitive cycles. So we'll call it comp 1, comp 2, like when you were doing yours. your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You really only had one pinnacle, so you'd have one competitive season with one big peak.
Yeah.
When we've got an elite pro who has to race every other weekend, sometimes every weekend for 4 months, that's a lot of little micro peaks.
Yeah.
That, you know, that's what makes the series so hard. As we say, you got to be in it to win it. We've all seen the attrition rate of going pro. It's very difficult. But if we're looking at going into the pre-competitive stage and we start dropping in speed work, that's the problem, is without the aerobic engine, without the strength base, you're not going to be able to go fast and you won't be able to sustain it, endurance.
Yeah.
That's where people get frustrated. If you haven't spent the time building this base strength big bore and you haven't built a carburetor to fuel it, you go into speed work and you get tired quickly and your top end speed isn't there. So when you're dealing with an elite athlete like Todd, yeah, it's great. We can get one lap that's a heater, but then he falls off 7 seconds. Well, that's no good.
Yeah.
You know, you and I've talked about this off the record. If you look at Mitch Payton's biggest thing is 1 second deviation. That's it. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't want, you know, Austin yard darting himself in the whoops. But the idea is like, you know, with AC, when we were working as an amateur, he would sit in his office back in California and he's watching the ticker. And his big pet peeve is consistency.
Yeah.
So that's what we trained for. Now, we also trained, I mean, I'm not giving away any secrets. We trained a negative split every race. So in a 20-minute moto at Loretta's, our goal was the second half was faster than the first half.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the caveat. Adam's 80% needed to be everyone else's 100%. That's what makes Todd unbeatable. If he can build that aerobic engine, he's able to deliver oxygen, dissipate lactic acid. Let's face it, at Todd's level, everybody's within tenths of a second on qualifying. Well, now it's taking it for 30 minutes and holding the consistency. So if the strength base isn't there, and this gets into some, you know, deep physiology, but we'll keep it 10,000 feet. What people don't realize is when you're lifting weights, you're actually soliciting at a neuromuscular level. The easiest example I can give you, if you lift 5 kilos, then you lift 7 kilos, your body's expecting 10. It's looking for that's why your second set always feels better than your second set feels better than the first.
Yeah.
It's because a neuromuscular message
There's like
has
a
been
trigger
set.
and you go like, get ready for more.
That's right. First set always sucks.
Yeah.
The best analogy I can give to somebody who's not understanding that example is, as you grow up, you start to learn that, you know, we call them gallons of milk, but, you know, however you do your, let's say a liter of milk, you go to pick it up and it's half empty. You notice how you slam it through the top of the refrigerator. That's a neuromuscular memory. That's what we're trying to teach. When we do strength training, I need the secondary muscle groups to step up when the primaries fail. Well, if you complement that with a huge aerobic engine, when I start doing speed work, Todd can maintain top end speeds. He can maintain the consistency. Now he gets more out of the quality side of an interval workout. If you think about it this way, if we go out and we do a 20K time trial, and the reason why I say 20K is we purposely do 10K out, 10K back. If you are smoking it to the first 10K and then you're 9 minutes slower the second, well, you know your muscular endurance isn't there. But you also don't have muscular power to sustain it. So when we start doing baseline assessments, if somebody's like completely running out of breath, but physically their muscles aren't tired, they just can't catch their breath, you have to focus on aerobic.
I'm the exact opposite.
Well, I was going to say, and then on the other side, you've got people who aerobically are fine, but their muscles are tapped.
Yeah.
That's a lack of muscular strength.
Well, that's like when I go riding with Maddie's legs don't get tired. Like I'll get the first, like when I was riding mountain bikes flat out, the first 7Ks of every ride just fucking hurt my legs.
Absolutely.
And then it goes away.
Yep.
But like my legs would get tired before I'd get puffed out. And it was the same when I was racing motocross. I just never got puffed. My muscles just were fucked.
Yep.
Like I just couldn't hold on.
And for you, think about the difference between Todd. It's a career. It's got to. There's no room for that, if we may call it an error.
Yeah.
Obviously, you didn't know what you didn't know. We were kind of teasing about it before. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so here he's going out there and he great qualifying times. Has great. I'm using a 30-minute moto loosely. You know, has a great first 10 minutes. Gets good start. Like you said, starts in fifth and moves right up into the top threes, holding pace. Then all of a sudden, anchor gets thrown and goes backwards. Well, lack of muscular endurance, lactate tolerance isn't there. Power isn't there.
Yeah.
No pun intended. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So you're bringing a big bore motor with a, you know, I always tease you, take a KX 500 engine, put a KX 85 carb on it. It's got its potential, but it can't do its job. And then vice versa.
Yeah.
I've got a, you know, KX 85 and I'm taking a a 500 carb
yeah.
and putting it in, that's where a preseason aerobic engine maximum strength, most guys don't do that. And what's really difficult is these guys, their season keeps getting longer and longer. There is no definitive off season, because that's the 4 seasons: preseason, pre-competitive, competitive, and off season. If Todd doesn't get a chance to regroup physically and mentally, if any of the listeners are sitting with a piece of paper at home, I want you to draw, like in an integer line, write the word cell, then write the word tissue, then write organ, and then write system. Think about this. If Todd's out and he's blitzing himself, he can't eat enough food, he's burning up, the health of his blood cells are going down the drain. We get this through a blood panel. This isn't something that any of the listeners can't self-evaluate.
Yeah.
If you see that you're down on B6, B12, iron, those are just the typical, I'm just pulling those 3 out randomly.
Yeah.
Those are 3 elements of a blood panel. Well, why are you low on B6, B12, and iron? Why are your white blood cell counts up? Why are red blood cell counts down?
Because you could be like eating the right food and doing the right supplements, but if your body's not keep going able to absorb those things, then it's like no matter what you eat or if you do the right things or
that's right,
yada yada yada.
But there's 3 total, and you hit the third one, which most people don't get, and that's the absorption.
Yeah.
The first one you look at is if your blood work's out of line, you're simply burning more than you can consume.
Yeah.
It's not that Todd eats garbage. So when we look at food, we look at quality. He's already doing that. We look at quantity. Well, my goodness, with the amount that he burns, his watch is going to show him he's burning 4,000 or 5,000 calories in a day. You did this when you were tapering for your show. Now all of a sudden, we do an evaluation, and Todd's got to get 5,000 calories a day. Well, he's driving 2 hours to the track, 2 hours back. He's riding. When's he going to stop and consume? And I'm saying 5,000 calories over a 15-hour day. So what ends up happening is, going back to your analogy, the 3 reasons why someone's going to have blood that's going to be out of line: either they're burning it faster than they can consume it, or, like you said, if we recognize that the biggest challenge is getting enough quality and quantity, that's my biggest challenge, then we have to look at, okay, your high intensity training, your overall burn rate, you're burning more than you're consuming. I don't want those 2 to get misunderstood. You're either burning more than you're taking in, which means we need to bump it up. You bump it up, and this is where your third one comes in. You're not absorbing what you're eating. So then we get into a colon cleanse and all the things about absorption of nutrients. Now, you also mentioned the word supplement. In 100% transparency, I own my own supplement business, but I don't want people taking supplements. Because what happens is, especially with the younger riders, if I say, hey, look, I want you to have a smoothie. It's going to give you 800 extra calories. We looked at your watch. We know your burn rate is way higher than what you can get in calorically. I need you to do a smoothie. That smoothie is not a meal replacement, hence the word supplementation. It's to supplement breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 snacks, eat every 2 hours. These little guys, they look at it and go, oh, I can have a smoothie for dinner. No. We're trying to get your calories as close to your burn rate as we can. Now, there'll be somebody that will send a nasty message. They'll put a message below the video or whatever, say, oh, you always want to be in a caloric deficiency. Bullshit.
Yeah,
especially for this guy.
Yeah.
Well, it really is applicable for everybody. Running a caloric deficiency it's like you coming in and telling me you're going to save weight on a motorcycle, so you're going to run the oil low in the casings. It's the exact same poor analogy. So yes, the bike will run, but when that oil is low, drain half the radiator fluid, stresses the system. Run the oil low, stresses the system. Will the bike run? Sure, it'll run. You may take a bike, he gets one fresh from the factory, they drain the oil just enough to finish the 30-minute moto. We drain half the fluid. In fact, we just go out and we ride it in the mud so we can coat it. How much stress do we put on that motor in 1 hour? But it only has an hour on it. But we stressed the system.
Yeah.
So when someone's saying to me, oh, it doesn't matter what your caloric burn rate is, bullshit. That's like you saying that you don't care how much gas you put in the bike or how much oil you have in the casings or radiator fluid. You're stressing a system. Well, when we look at caloric deficiency and you just keep going in a hole, where will he be in a week? If he's burning 5,000-6,000 calories a day, and he's busy, man, he's trying to do his best. He's eating, his quality is good. The bad part is eating good. When I say good, fruits, vegetables, and lean protein. We talked about it on the last show. Food doesn't have to be difficult. The problem is it's not calorically dense. To get 6,000 calories, if you guys go to the grocery store, those pre-bagged salads, pick up the pick it up and look at the look at the label.
Calorie,
75 calories in one of those bags. This guy needs 6,000 calories.
How much are you eating these days when you're training full blown?
For what you can tell us.
I just eat. to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
see,
bring this
that-
closer.
And that's what's scary right there. Like you said, he's just eating. He's eating good quality. But if his watch shows us he's burning 6,000 calories, and let's do a Monday through Sunday. Let's just use even numbers. Let's say he misses it by 1,000. That's 7,000 calorie deficit in 1 week. And we wonder, this is why I wanted you to go back to the cells, tissue, organs. We wait until the system, adrenal fatigue, let's just go straight to the big one in our sport. We now have a diagnosis on a system. For the listeners, look at your notes. Cells make up tissue, tissue make up organs, organs make up a system. Remember what we said earlier? The body's a closed network.
Yeah.
Now we wait till the system is diseased. We go in, they say, hey, you've got Epstein-Barr, you've got adrenal fatigue, you've got some It's because the blood chemistry got out of whack. We ignored it. He's a pro. He's got to keep training. He's got a calendar. He's got commitments. Now all of a sudden we're calorically deficient. We hadn't even talked about being hydration deficient, sleep deprived. Think about the stress on the human body. Now we go until the tissue becomes sick, until the system becomes sick, and then we have someone like him who's got a 3-year deal, and he can only honor 1 because he's got a diseased system because of blood chemistry being out of whack.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important.
That the sleep thing was probably like one of your biggest things, when you listened to the last podcast with Rob. So how did you if you've got questions too, I want you to just go nuts with
that was
questions.
a big thing that I wanted. That's a big one because I contacted you about that.
Yeah.
And that's really what interests me because like I explained before, I've touched on, and by all means I've got not one little bit of education about the human body. I just know things from experiences, injuries, I know what ACLs are because I've snapped them, and I know where they are and rehabs and all this sort of stuff. But for example, I've got my fiance Jill, who's a physio, so she's quite educated on the human body, and they do the first 3 years of an exercise scientist sort of thing. So she writes all my programs and stuff like that. And at the moment, we have how much, every morning I get up, resting heart rate, obviously. Sleep, how many hours deep sleep, I record all this stuff, because looking back when I was at Red Bull, I've got everything's recorded, and that's the biggest thing that I found with high-end athletes is everything's recorded, not just because they feel like it. It's a record of everything that you've done.
That's right.
And to touch on the diet stuff, I've been everywhere with everything throughout my career, and I don't know whether it's because of my upbringing. We eat very healthy. My family's a healthy family. We had a junk food Friday when I was a kid. We weren't allowed soft drink, this sort of stuff. And it's not anything. I am an athlete. It's my dad just took me racing, and I was going to work in the business, and we we're going to have kids, and I was going to have kids, and we're just going to build a business, Yep. And it wasn't. I ain't one of these kids that the old man's running around yelling at me to hold my leg up or anything.
I love it.
My old man's over there changing tyres for some people talking. When I turned, I was probably 19, 20, I was so hungry to get overseas and to better my career. And I'd be like, Dad, what can I do? What can I work on? Oh, you look good, mate. Really smooth. You're riding good, mate. Never come on, man. What? Do I need to get my hips back or just, So I kind of struggled with that. But when I was overseas, I found what works for me is just cutting out all the stuff. Like you said, vegetables, everything needs to be fresh. Yep. Chicken breasts, no gravy, no this, no that. I cut out a lot of stuff when I was in Europe, and I found I started tasting food a lot more because here in Australia we have chicken breast and we'll put gravy on it. It's when you go to pub meals and stuff like that, everything's got gravy and, sauce or all this kind of stuff. So I just ate really clean. Then I started to notice that, man, food tastes good. Yeah. And then I'd go to a pub and they'd put hollandaise sauce on something, or I can't eat sauces now. If I get a wrap from somewhere, I'm like, no sauce. I don't want mayonnaise. It's not that I'm a health freak or anything. It's just, I just eat healthy. And like I had said before, I come back from Europe because that was my biggest question to the Red Bull crew. Is I'm like, man, you've got $1 million facility here. My name's on the TV screen telling me where I need to go, to the laboratory to see if where my CK level is before I start training, you know, and it just goes on. Like I'm doing 90-minute cycle, I've got scabs on my ears from them taking blood.
Sure enough.
You know, like to see where my lactic acid is, at what heart rate. It just blew my mind, but nothing about diet. You know, we had a sports psych, physio every day.
Didn't they just tell you to just eat whatever you wanted?
So I'm just in there and I'm like, what about diet? It's so important. Yeah, you just need to eat fresh. Like, yeah, but how much? Like, that's my biggest thing. Like, I don't know how much do I eat, because what I struggle with, and the biggest thing I had problems with is, like you said, I learnt about the low heart rate, and I was just doing it because
they told you to.
Yeah, but they have, you know, after going there and being in that program, you're like, this is insane.
Sure.
I loved it. Yeah. Like, just walk in. Oh, it felt like I was in the Olympics.
Like a no-brainer. Like you just did what you were told. Like you didn't have to think about it.
At the end of the day, I just was 16. They're just like, here's a contract, man. You're getting paid to ride. This is what you get if you win. Bonuses and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this is sick. You know, next minute you're making half decent money, but there's no physio. You know, I break my leg, I'm in a moon boot for 13 weeks. Soon as that thing's off, I'm back racing. Getting on the box. Yeah, this is mad. Walk off with this limp. Like, so that was a big thing when I went there. They're just like, you got imbalances here and there, and your glutes aren't turning on, all this stuff. And I'm like one leg's face, like I walk with this foot out and this one straight. Like, so all of a sudden I've gone from, I can't just go for a run in the forest anymore. Like, I got to be.
Did that shit make you doubt yourself heaps when you got there? Like, did you feel like you'd done like tons of shit wrong, or were you just like, oh, it is what it is, I'll just figure it out?
Because I don't have that mentality, and that might be like where you touched before, where you're saying like you've got 11-year-old kids that are like arguing with you. For me, 2 years ago, I went over with Ben Townley, and he come over to Australia, spent some time with us, and I did 3 days with him, and he said afterwards, he's like, man, and I'm still like, I thank him for last year. You know, like I said, I've had no one. I just think if I work harder than everyone, I will get there. You know, I haven't had like, you need to be doing this and that, and it's pretty much, I've had great support from my family to get to where I need to go, but my old man's awesome with bikes and stuff, and with positivity, you know, there's never, I come 11th, you know, good race, mate, you'll get him next time, you know, and we go, he's not one drilling me to where I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. So big thing for me was never having that sort of like what I see in America. Like, they're like this big, man, they got coaches for everything, mental coaches, all this sort of stuff, like, and I'm thinking, so the biggest thing when I got there and they're telling me I'm unfit, my answer straight away is, I'm like, that's awesome. They're like,
because I'm doing good as it is.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, man, I just got myself into 5th. Imagine what we can do.
Can only go up from here.
Like, and I've always had that attitude, so I don't have it where I'm like, what would you know, or anything like that. Like, I raced Townley when he come back. Like, that's when I was coming up. I just started to find my feet. Ben was racing us, and then he worked with me for 3 days, and he was like, man, you got to get your hips back, because I don't know style.
Sure.
I just ride, man. I'm just known to be the dude at the end of the race. I'm coming for you.
You're in. Yeah, that's right.
It ain't pretty or anything. Don't care, but I'm coming. And my style is quite straight back, knees forward, like horrible style on a motorbike, you know, for that sort of stuff.
I wouldn't say horrible, but
but like,
it's your own style.
Yeah, but I look at it like, yes, I'm very smooth.
Guys that sort of rides a little bit.
Yeah,
like
he does
too,
actually.
You know, like I feel like it's. I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a horrible style.
Yeah, but like when you
but you
Ben
watch
said
Ben
to me,
ride, like, because that's been the big. Like I was saying to you this in the car. Like, I've tried to change I never thought about my style either. I just was like, I just look fucking shit. But then with Ben, he like literally was telling me, and even just the other day, me riding that grass track in New Zealand, I was like, the only thing I did was like put my chin over the bar pad, pretty much everywhere, stand up, sit down, made everything feel different. I was like, fuck, you've been riding 20 something years, and like this is the first time you've done this good. But
try
like,
me, man.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I was there, you know, like,
Ben's so good with that shit, bro. Yeah, it's crazy.
But like he said to me, like, man, you need to get your hips back. This is why, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. So I just exaggerated, man. I poked my ass up in the air. Like, I felt like I was actually retarded. Like I was taking the piss, you know? And I just poked my bum in the air, like got my hips back, stood on my toes, dropped my heels and head forward. And I nearly flipped it through the rollers. No joke. I got so much drive and I nearly flipped the thing.
That's
and
sick.
I just come back with my eyes like saucepans and Ben was just clapping. And that's all I did. I just worked on that. And then for the 3 days, and he's just like, you look like a completely different rider. Like, and he's like, I'm amazed because you're so old. You know, like I was 26 or 27 at that stage.
Yep.
Racing professional since I was 16. So that's four days a week.
Yeah.
For how many years
10 years
doing
in
that
4
style,
days, yep.
you know. And last year, you know, we're in national races, like going down hills and stuff, and I'm like, I'd get into the lead and I'd just be like, yep, okay, stay on your toes, drop your heels, like come out, put your foot up, like, you know, I'm
fundamentals.
I'm analysing my stuff. And funny enough, today I went for a trail ride and I was like, man, I went flat footed and I was like, man, it's not me anymore. Like I was like, yes, it's finally locked in, because I've been doing some stuff like we did an up north tour, and I sort of say that to the kids. I'm like, I really look at Tony Caroli, like there's a start, I've got a photo where I'm going for a hole shot and I'm like, guys, I'm quite straight up like this, arms straight and that. Caroli's just right here and his hips, he's dropped his heels and his bum is at the back mudguard, but his head is touching the bar pad.
Yeah, over the bar pad.
I'm way taller than him and I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I stretch all the time and, you know, I look at these guys and I'm just like, and to answer your question before, like I look at like Ben and I look back and I'm like, man, like how come you couldn't tell me that when I was 16?
Yeah.
Like honestly, because I've always been that sort of dude. Someone tells me something and I do it because I haven't had it.
Right.
Like I don't have someone drilling me all the time where these kids, you just see them, they're just like, oh, this guy's pulled me up, he's going to tell me this. Like,
yeah.
You know, I've always had, oh mate, you look awesome. Like, mate, you know, because I won a lot of races through my career and it was never really a thing. So when someone said it, I was like, oh, what? Is this good? Is this what I'm doing?
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
blah, blah. And that's what I'm like with my training, like with everything. Like heart rate, oh yeah, I'll do 130 heart rate, that's sweet. And so that's the biggest thing that I've found through my career is things like that where, because I haven't been drilled, it makes the fire really strong.
Yeah, there'd be a balance because like, you know, you'd work with some little fucking assholes and asshole parents, and it's like, yeah, they might be getting all of the best info, the best knowledge, and then just like pissing it into the wind. Yeah. And it might make them like kind of fast to a point, and you've gotten a lot of guys to a point and then they've dropped you or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then it's like that there's just not a longevity in that, you know, like you look at you won your first national championship at what, 27? Yeah. And it's like, you know, you probably wish you had a bit more of that, but if you had a bit more of that, maybe you wouldn't have ended up where you are now. So it's like, it's for sure a balancing act though of, you know, because there's that many spoiled kids that have had everything and never done anything with it. So I don't know. Oh, massive. There's definitely there's a balance to it for sure.
Massive. And for me, and everybody's different, you know, and I look at all these different guys and the guys that I've raced and become friends with in Europe, you know, like Max Nagel, like you got Caroli, these guys, they've been riding bikes, but not like us in Australia. Like I live near the beach, you know. Yeah. On my day off, I go surfing with my fiance.
Sure enough.
You know, like I have a ripper life here in Australia, and that's what opened my eyes up. Over there, it's like Jill and I'd go for a cycle and she'd turn around and go home halfway through because she couldn't handle how cold it was on your hands. You know, we're going for a 90-minute recovery cycle after a GP that we've just flown from Argentina and it's taken 36 hours with 3 stopovers. Like, but then the time on the bike, like, and that's where we go back to the heart rate stuff, Jace. Like, you know, I've just stumbled across all this stuff. Like I explained to Rob, like, I didn't go to uni. I don't know all this sort of stuff, but I've experienced it. Yeah. Like it's a different kind of feeling, I guess. And that's funny enough. Last night I was saying to Jill, I was like, just laying there in bed, I was like, man, you know, it's working. Like I didn't get to do this. Like Ken Roxon was in that program when he was 12. Yeah. Because the same people who were working with me they had Ken coming through when he was on the Suzuki with Red Bull the whole way through.
Yeah, you look at like Jorge Prado, Hurlings.
So these guys, they've got that. And that was the weirdest feeling when I got my first GP podium. Like, I stand up there and I'm like it was my 10th ever GP in my career. Like, world champion, not MX2, nothing, just
that was
going in, 10th ever race, I'm on the podium, I'm like, this isn't right. Like,
Sure.
Like, you got...
Shouldn't be possible.
It isn't possible. What I mean? Like, like, honestly, like, to you guys, like, I just learned about heart rate zones, like 3 months ago, man. Like, it's really stupid, and that's what kind of, I guess, I look at it and I'm like, man, my potential could have been really good, like that. My career's fine. Like, I was just going to be a cabinet maker, so I'm amped.
Sure.
Like Jace knows, like, I'm out there, I've just welded up benches in our workshop. Like, if I'm not doing that, I'm doing up a car, or probably putting a kitchen in my house, or in
like
between riding and stuff.
I could fully envision your life in Atherton. Like, I know exactly if you weren't pro. Like, I know the exact person that you would be. Like, because you are that dude. You just actually do race bikes.
Yeah. So it's like, it's really strange for me to see these guys that, when Villapoto was over there and we did a signing, like, he wasn't enjoying it, and that made me feel sad. Like, we're at the Nations and the eyes that he was looking through were like completely different to mine,
It's crazy when you can notice that, eh?
Yeah, like, I'm like, honestly, and I'm really big on that now. Like, hang on a second, you're giving a real bad vibe. You need to go stand right over there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I just like having a good time, because I don't want to hear about, oh man, don't get paid enough or this or that or anything. Like, man, you should go make kitchens. Like, you don't get paid much, and you're not sitting on 180 heart rate while you're riding a motorbike, but poor you for doing that.
Exactly.
I think it's mad.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because my heart breaks for you, because when they say to you, hey, you're really good, you're just not in good shape.
Yeah.
And whenever we do our baseline assessments, it doesn't matter what athlete we're working with, triathlete, motocross, doesn't really matter. I always say to him, you're in great shape, you're just not in good shape to race motocross. And I've probably said that more times than I've not.
Yeah, but you're not German.
Well, yeah. But the challenging part is they get offended. Instead of looking at it as, like you say, and I get accused of being the glass always half full. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why does it always have to be half empty?
Yeah.
It's interesting when, and we talked about this off the record as well, when an ex-pro now becomes a nutritionalist and a psychologist and a physio, I have a problem with that. I teased about this on the show last time. I have a 250F. I've read the manual. I don't think I should be able to spin wrenches for you professionally. It just doesn't make me, It's not my position. But when you look at the functional strength, that's what we do with our workshops and camps, is exactly what you're talking about. If you can't get into that position the way you described Caroli, and let's say Ben's your riding coach, my responsibility and moral obligation is to get you to understand, A, why you can't do what Ben is asking you to do, whether it's a strength and or a flexibility issue, then empower you with the resources so you can do what Ben is saying. That's it. But like we were saying before,
be that simple, huh?
Well, as we were saying before the start of the show, I have to, I'm not dishing on the United States, but at home, all I get is arguments. No disrespect to your dad that's a carpenter, but I'll have a carpenter or someone who lays concrete that will argue with me about physiology.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so I hired you to build me a kitchen, or I hired you to lay some concrete, and now I'm going to come out and tell you how to do your job. And because they're paying a check, they think, well, because I'm paying you, you're going to continue to browbeat me until I do what I'm going to continue to say and do the things that you're regurgitating. No. And just like we were saying before we started the show, I mean, we've had to part ways with facilities. We've had to part ways with individuals where, look, I'm not saying that I know everything. If I don't know it, I will get you the answer. But my responsibility is that you understand why we're doing it. Whether it's the listeners talking, listen to us on the show, it kills me to think that 99% of society feels they have to have a Red Bull deal. And I've seen some of the Red Bull reports. I've heard some of the Red Bull reports. We worked with Ashley Filick when she was with Red Bull. I didn't get a chance to, keep them because it's, private information. I was on the Olympic team for the sport of triathlon. I was on the junior development program. Exactly that. They sit in a room around a table, and they're disseminating information. Well, the thing that I always say about the Olympic Training Center is they have no agenda. They're results.
Yeah, they just want to
their
win.
whole agenda
they
is
care.
results.
Yeah.
So they're not going to argue with you of whether or not you're going to sleep a lot. They're telling you to sleep. They're going to evaluate. Now, this is before heart rate monitors. We slept with electrodes on our head. It was so barbaric, it wasn't even funny. It was really bad. They'd follow us into the cafeteria. They were like, you're going to eat this and you're going to eat this. I mean, it was like, it's pretty barbaric. My point in all of this is it was non-negotiable. It was, you're going to do it because we know it works. You don't know what you don't know. That's why we're here. Like when you had the experience with the Germans, it's like, just kind of shut up and do what we say. I'm not very brash that way. I want you to know why you're doing it. I use it as a mushroom analogy. I don't want you to feel like you're covered, kept in the dark and covered in shit all the time. You don't have to go deep and understand all the physio, but you need to have confidence as to, before you start any workout, know why you're doing the workout. How does this workout contribute to what we're doing today? How does that contribute in a week? How does that contribute in a 6-week training cycle? How does this contribute to a 12-month plan, especially with a race schedule that he has to maintain? But if you take it deeper, if we didn't get 9 hours of sleep, if we didn't show that we ate enough, if we didn't show that we did, let's call it foam rolling, we were kicked off the team. It's non-negotiable. It's not if you want to do it. It's you're going to do it, and if you don't do it, the only option is dismissal. We've got a bunch of other people. There's a lot of guys that would love to have his job. So don't sit here and argue with me about it. And that's the thing. At the Olympic Training Center, we're not getting paid to be there. This was before Olympic athletes could be paid. So it was a privilege. I love your attitude. It's like, dude, you're racing a dirt bike.
Yeah.
And you're complaining about it? Like you said, go work a real job for a year and then come back and tell me how hard that 180 workout is. And I get really, really frustrated. And I talk about this a lot. Don't complain to me that you've got 17 Supercross races that you've got to go to. When you've been training and racing and wanted to have a factory deal since you were 11, and then complain to me that you have to be on a flight 3 days a week. You knew it when you were 11, you knew it when you were 12, you knew it when you were 15, and now you've got a contract. Now you're complaining you've got to go test with Mitch at the test track with Bones. You're complaining about this? And I guess to me it's more of like, are you surprised that this is part of the job? I used to love talking with Ricky about this. When you look at Ricky's helmet, he had Aeronautique, he had Kicker. Every one of those stickers is more and more and more obligations. He's like, no, why would I want to do that? How about just go out and win on the weekend, get a nice hefty bonus that surpasses what these little stickers are paying me anyways. But I don't have to go do the signing, and I don't have to do a photo shoot, and I don't have to. It's just somebody else cutting into your schedule. But again, everybody wants the sponsors. Are you willing? Does your behavior match your desirable outcome? That's what I have a frustration with. It's not like you went into the sport and you might have to do suspension testing.
Yeah. There's an off chance that we could need you to test at some point
at some
your career.
point, yeah.
Nah, bro, you're testing every fucking week.
Yeah, exactly.
Deal with it.
And you're complaining about it. I mean, and we could talk about a couple people that have, been fined and penalized for not showing up for testing sessions because of a multitude of reasons.
Some of them have probably been on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, and you look back in the States, some of the most highly talented guys that never made it because of poor choices and decisions that also paid some of the biggest fines for not showing up for testing. Are you really surprised? But that's another subject in itself. But it goes back to it's a non-negotiable. We have watches now that literally I can look at your computer dashboard and I can look at hours of sleep, deep sleep. We've got MyFitnessPals on your phone that with your permission I can log into. I could take your computer dashboard, look at your burn rate versus your consumption rate. I can avoid this diseased platform that we're creating. I always say this, and I don't want this to sound snide at all. The military doesn't wait until you wreck a $500 million plane to go, okay, now that you've crashed it, let's go figure out how we can avoid that. But yet people will come to me once their system is diseased or they have an ailment. Can't sleep, have night sweats, simple sugar, all the signs of adrenal fatigue. And you've got someone like Todd who his results drive his next contract. So now he works in a mode of fear because, all right, I've only got a 1-year deal. Oh man, the results aren't where I want. So,
which is like a stress hormone kind of thing. So you're like
exactly.
living in like a fight or flight mode. Which isn't
Constantly.
like the optimal way for your system to live.
Go back to what we talked about, running the motor low on oil, running the radiator low, stressing a system. So now he's working in a fear-based mode. Now he's concerned that he's not going to get re-signed. The results aren't where he wants to be. Do you think he wants to hear me say, you know what you need to do, Todd? Add 2 hours of sleep. Work less.
Yeah.
Go on more 130 rides and less 180 rides. He's like, F you. I'm not performing the way I think I should. And my contract, and I've got my agent, and these people are all breathing down my throat. That's why I don't become popular with these guys. Because I'm not here to tell him what he wants to hear. I'm telling him what we can do to turn those circumstances around. Anyone, a listener, weekend warrior, a vet rider, an up-and-comer, or a pro, physiology doesn't care who you are. I can't argue with the law of physics, just like I can't argue with the law of physiology. What doesn't make me popular is I'm going to always base his workouts based on biofeedback. Big way of saying heart rate, hours of sleep, appetite, consistent performance. If I see those performance areas, and I don't care anybody that's listening to the show, it doesn't matter if you're going out and riding for 15 minutes with your mates on the weekend. That's what you want to do. That's awesome. I want you to have fun doing it, not get tired, and reduce your risk of injury. The physiology applies to him. It applies to your dad that's a cabineter, makes cabinets and a carpenter, as well as you want to go out and make a living as racing a bike. But the problem is you get into agendas. We talked a little bit about this before the show. As a coach, one of my biggest platforms that I'm trying to push right now is coach accountability. Todd just said it himself. Ben Townley's great. We've been talking with Ben. We're trying to put some things together for him and his riders. Ben is one of the few that gets it, understands his limitations. He understands his boundaries. He knows where his line stops and someone else's begins.
He also has like zero ego too. So
Absolutely.
It's like easy for that shit to happen when you're not like blinded by thinking that you're better, or what I mean? Like any of that ego shit that comes into it, because that's really what it is. Well,
and my whole thing about it is, to me, I don't believe, if you look at Todd and Todd starts to get some help from somebody, what's the agenda of that person helping? That's my biggest question. Let's just use the word generically, coach. Where's the coach's accountability? Because if I'm roaching Todd's adrenals, I should somehow be responsible for that. Financial ramification, he throat punches me, something, okay? But the problem is he's
a pussy. I'm
the expert. And so here's Todd, like he said, and I appreciate how humble you are. Hey, I don't have the education in this. I'm willing to listen. I work hard. Like you said, I'll outwork anybody. So you take somebody who's not knowledgeable, who wants to make it about them. So if I say, look, no gluten, no sugar, no, well, it becomes about me. You're not going to have any fun, no fishing, don't go out with your fiance, nothing. You're going to do nothing but what I say. Well, it's about me.
Yeah.
If he's showing signs of stress, I need to fix that. That's just that cut and dry. Now, obviously, I have to earn his trust. I have to be able to get the parameters, because all of us work in a world of 4 quadrants: personal, professional, financial, and athletic. I can only influence the 4th quarter. I influence that with frequency, duration, and intensity. So when I'm saying, Todd, your body is showing that it's overstressed, I don't know what's going on personally, professionally, or financially. But if I can earn his trust and he can confide in me, I can adjust some of this. Hey, right now things aren't going too well in one of those 3 quadrants. Is this the week that we're going to decide that we're going to do 10 by 2K kilometers on the rower, on the bicycle? We're going to go out and we're going to do some negative split motos on the motorcycle? That doesn't make any sense. That's irresponsible as a coach. I don't care that the rest of your life is in shambles. It's all about me, buddy. We're going to the track. We're going to the gym. We're going to do it. We're going to hammer it. Even though his heart rate's elevated, his appetite's suppressed, not trying to embarrass him, he can't get an erection, signs of adrenal fatigue.
Always had that.
Okay. I mean, and that's the problem. Your listeners are good about, they don't get caught up on the sensitivity of the subject. Look, if you've got night sweats, you can't sleep and you're tired, you're craving simple sugars, and you have low sex drive, dude, you've got all 4 of the big ones. Yeah. If you've got one of the 4, you've got the onset of adrenal fatigue. Wake up, address it. The problem is most men won't admit that something's wrong. And when it comes to fixing it, it's so unmanly. Eat more, sleep more. Because if for any of the listeners, again, who have a piece of paper, draw a straight line and draw a triangle in the middle of it. You're just making a teeter-totter. On the left side, make a big square, divide it in 4 parts: personal, professional, financial, and athletic. The only thing that balances, because that box is called stress.
Yeah.
That's it. It's in one of those 4 quadrants that you're dealing with. Every minute of every day is in those 4 quadrants. The only way you can keep balanced is sleep and food. Now, you mentioned going fishing and doing things like that, but it's still all balancing act.
Yeah, because they're going to stress the system even if it's like light activity or whatever.
That's exactly it. So, and where I was going with Todd getting some information, I also understand that there's a lot of asshole trainers out there that have overextended themselves outside the boundaries of where the wheelhouse should have been. And let's say that because I was in a factory rig, or I worked with so and so and so and so as an ex-mechanic, that always cracks me up. The idea now is the athlete pays the price because he hired an expert. This guy supposedly has been there, has done that, right? So now Todd trusts it, gives up 2 years of a valuable career only to find out that now his system is roached. That guy moves on. He moves on to another rider. He moves on to another team. You now have teams that hire these so-called experts. So I'll pick up a rider, take them through their amateur career. I'm not allowed to work with them when they go pro because the team has a contract with somebody, and that person does not have the credentials to be doing what they're doing. So again, I go back to, and I don't want somebody who hears me for the first time go, man, he's an arrogant prick. I'm not trying to sound that way. I don't think I should be hired to spin wrenches for Todd. Yeah. Even though I read my manual. I don't think that a team, quote unquote, trainer without the credentials, where I had somebody that I worked with, he signed with a team, and my athlete did a great job. He said to me, he says, Rob, I have to move on to the other trainer. I said, dude, you got to do what you got to do. It's your job. It's part of your contract. I respect that. I said, you just need to be able to humbly ask why you're doing every workout. That's what I've always challenged him. If you don't know what you're going out to do, and when I do your training schedule, every workout, I literally put workout notes, why we're doing it, what the benefit of it is, what you can expect. Even if it's going to be an LT workout, lactate threshold, hey, come to this workout ready to go to the house of pain. Yeah. Not a negative, but if we know that your LT needs to be improved, this workout is to eliminate that weakness. Get your head straight first, then approach it. It's not going to feel good because you're not good at it. You're not good at it because you don't like it. So that's what he did. First week, he moved to a new facility. First week, he asked the trainer, he goes, why are we doing this? And he put his finger in his chest. He goes, you don't ever ask me again why we're doing anything. I'm like, dude, I would have packed my bags and told him to go fly a kite. Because I work for Todd. Todd needs to know why. And if I can't explain it to Todd, then I failed him as a physiologist. That's where we go back to coach accountability. I believe, and I mean this sincerely, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. If Todd ever got diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, I should have to give every dollar back that he's ever given me. Whenever I do a pro contract, I only do it on bonuses, because I don't think I should tap into his salary. I should be getting compensated when he does well, and only when he does well. This whole idea, especially back in the States, these man friends, dude, really? I mean, in all fairness, and I'm not trying to name drop, one of my best, one of the riders I loved working with was Ian Treadle when he was with Suzuki. And when he went from amateur, because that's when Bobby's program was Suzuki, it was Jason Anderson and Ian. And Ian moved out to California to move in with Brock Tickle. And so Bobby, Ian's like, Rob, you got to come out to California. Well, I have 2 little boys at the time. I'm not moving to California for anybody, and I'm nobody's man friend. I'm nobody's trophies coach. Yeah. I'm not going to go to the movies with you. I'm not going to sit out there and hold your pit board. I don't do that. I'm more than happy to go to the gym with you to make sure that you're working out correctly. I'll go on bike rides with you because I like to work out. I like to, shoot the shit. Like if we're doing a low intensity ride where we ride shoulder to shoulder, we'll get 3 hours in together. Because I'm never going to ask, and this is one thing, this is another challenge. I never ask my athletes to do anything that I wouldn't do. Now, I can't blitz the whoops like him, but I'll go ride. But I also will go bike with him. I'll go swim with him. I'll go lift with him. I'll go foam roll with him. I would never ask him to do anything that I won't do. While we're doing it, I want him to understand why he's doing it. Why? When that bike rolls into the starting grid, what in the hell is confidence? We can't taste it. We can't see it. We can't feel it. But when it's not there, you can certainly see it. Well, if I look at everything that I do for an athlete, nutrition, strength training, flexibility, at the end of the day, I've got to make sure his brain develops in line with his physiological adaptation. So when he rolls into that gate, he knows why he's done what he's done. He knows what he's done to get there. And it's pretty simple. When he wins, he doesn't have to work in a mode of fear because he looks back and he knows exactly what he did to get there. so that we just keep building on that platform.
Yeah.
That's where a coach's responsibility needs to be a little bit more, I think, accountable. Explain to me why we're doing it. Show me the training schedule. You know, like you said, you didn't go to uni for it. That's fine. Periodization can be explained very simply. So
and it's not like you need, as an athlete, you need to know like every single like ins and outs and know all the terminology.
But
like,
he should be allowed to ask a question why.
Yeah, you just need like a concept of like what it is and how it helps, eh?
But all of a sudden I get my feathers in a wad because he's questioned me. He's not questioning, he's asking for clarification. What the hell's wrong with that? You know, our services with our pro contracts, we're asking for a percentage of his bonus. You don't think he deserves to be able to ask me why we're doing what we're doing? And then if I can't explain it, how can I cash that check with any kind of confidence? That's completely immoral. And that's where I want to get into coach accountability. There's a lot of athletes that in good faith have hired somebody, get roached. That other person moves on and continues to do it to this day. I talked to you about it off the record. That scares me. You know, there's a couple people that are using coaches that have a track record of destroying athletes. And I don't understand that. I say this very humbly. I've never had an athlete ever get diagnosed with a disease, and I've never had an athlete not finish a race, whether that's a triathlon, a running race, a mountain bike race, because I will always bring Todd into a race and a series of races under-trained before I'll allow him to go in overtrained. If he's got a 7-race series, yeah, we're going to come in fighting at round 1, but we're going to be in it all the way to the end. Versus, and this is one of the things I think you're seeing back in the States, they're so overstressed before the season begins. That's why you see the attrition rate. This is my personal opinion. Chronically tired, chronically dehydrated, being told that they've got to be lean to get the whole shot, so now they're calorically restricted. Now you've got the body's in complete disarray. Why? I mean, there isn't a supercross season or a motocross season that we've had 100% completion. And some people may, that's a really foolish comment, Rob. You don't know moto? I've been in moto since 78. I get moto, okay? But when you look at the nature of the accidents, what's going on? Why, you know, when AC whiskey throttled and he hit that wall, that was a pretty big hit. Well, he shouldn't have been shattered the way he was shattered. That's a fragile body that hit a wall. And then you look at his chronic injury since then. Now he's changed programs. He's a little bit more durable. Look at how he landed last weekend in that whoop section. If he wasn't durable, he wouldn't be talking and walking right now. I seriously think he'd be in ICU. But he's really worked on building his muscle mass so he can take those impacts. He's worked on his flexibility. He can take that, you know, scorpion type of stuff. But to land flat back in the whoops like that, yeah, he, like you said, he's hurting, but he's walking.
He racing next weekend. His championship's not done.
That's exactly right.
So what would be like right now your biggest questions about like where you'd need to go, or what's like the biggest holes you think you have to kind of get better when it comes to this kind of stuff?
Biggest thing for me is the sleep. Like that's
so what was it like? Because you've got a cool story of when you listened to that podcast and then you started tracking your sleep. So what was it first? Because you were just like, you were tripping out, right?
Well, Rob, just refresh my memory with that. Was it 3 to 4 hours of deep sleep a night?
Our goal is to get 2.
Oh, 2.
Yeah, it's to get 2. But what happened was he had just, if I'm not mistaken, don't let me put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you had just bought a new watch. And so what happens is when you get a new watch, we've got to realize that these watches are building a database on us. So every day you wear it, it gets more and more fine-tuned. So when you first get a new watch, it's like out of 9 hours, 7.5 was deep sleep. So poor Todd's like, oh my gosh, you know, why am I getting 3 hours of deep sleep? And then it kind of we started to adjust from there, if my story was correct.
No, but I thought you said more deep sleep, because for some reason I had in my mind that it was like 3 hours of deep sleep.
Yeah.
And I would get like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God,
This is what's wrong. I'd like to do that.
Well, just to clarify, if it's over 2, that's money in the bank.
Yeah, yeah.
I usually struggle just getting somebody, as you experienced, to get up to 2 hours of deep sleep. And not getting technical to the listeners, but we also look at the number of sleep cycles. And if you look at that dashboard, you'll see where it goes deep sleep.
Yep.
Then it'll go to transitional. It'll go deep, light, transitional.
Yep.
And every transition is a sleep cycle. And your goal is to get at least 5 sleep cycles a night. Now, there's some arguments that it's 8. I'm not getting into all that on the air, but
got a little book here that I'm gonna start. There's like that Matt Walker Why We Sleep book.
Yeah.
about to get into it. You should read that too if you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll lend it to you.
But you're exactly right. The goal was to get 2+. If you're
Yeah.
able to get that consistently and you've been wearing your watch for, let's say, 6 or 8 months and you
Yeah.
know that the data is relatively accurate, then that's great. I mean, it's awesome. My experience has been most struggle to just get to 2 hours. And the reason being is once you get into deep sleep, that's where your body releases HGH and testosterone. And for the listener that says, oh, I'm not an elite athlete, think about this. HGH is the hormone that makes you lean. Testosterone is, besides the obvious, testosterone also increases red cell production. Well, that's where you carry your hemoglobin, which is a precursor to carrying oxygen. So people look at sleep and go, oh, sleep is for the weak. No, it's the exact opposite. We have some professional runners that sleep 16 hours a day.
Yeah, and cyclists, right? They just ride, sleep.
That's all they do.
Yep, and eat.
But
So
yet,
where'd you start, and then like sleep wise, and then has it gotten better for you over time, like since you started monitoring it?
Yeah, so like good for me is like I need to be above 1 hour of deep sleep, obviously. The best I've had is 2 hours, and funny enough, that was the night of our championship race.
Wow, really?
how cool is that?
So the night before the championship was the best
Best sleep
night.
I've ever had.
Oh, that's fucking
Which
gnarly,
is
dude.
so we had a 2-day event, so a bit like a GP.
Okay.
So we had so it's 2 rounds of the championship. So Saturday's one, Sunday's the next
Okay.
day, and it's a sand track. Which
oh
is
yeah, you won like
quite
every
brutal.
moto in practice. That's why you
Yeah,
slept good.
but it was like just a perfect weekend all round. Like, you know, I prepared myself really well. Mentally, I was there. I was very empty-minded.
Mm-hmm.
So when I sat on the start line, there was no thoughts in my head. It was just gate, 30-second board. Like it was.
Let's execute.
And
Yep.
that's what I really worked on. And like you said about going into a championship, my whole career, like I was the kid that I hopped on a 450 when I was 18, and all the guys come back from the States, McFarlane, all them, and I won. I had the red plate, you know, and then injured. Next round, red plate, injured. But I come there to the first round, I'm going to win. You know, this is the last round for the championship is how I treated
That's awesome.
the first round, you
Yep.
know. And that's just my young mentality, and that's what makes me who I am, you know. But what I did last year differently was I was like, now we read some cycle, like my chick's right into, she needs to know why.
Sure.
You know, I'll come home because in Australia it's the best, you know. Oh, so-and-so reckons this, you know. Oh, I should be doing this. Why? Like, because she's very highly educated, you know. She's much like yourself. Like,
Question it.
what's the research behind this? I'll look it up.
Yeah.
You know, like great examples. My old man with there's a plant called comfrey,
Okay.
right? And this is a good one. We laugh about it. Now this plant, and it's known, like you get this plant, it's like a thing, and you what do? You put it on a rag and you heat it up and you wrap it with Glad wrap, and you actually get comfrey tablets and oil.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a thing there, but he'll have a bruise on his leg, you know, and he'll wrap his leg in this, and he's just like come out and he's like, oh, it's way better, like, you know. And that's the mentality here in Australia. So yeah, I got lost to where I am.
So yeah, then Jill looked it up probably.
Yeah, so that's where like Jill really helps me to be like, now I'm like, hang on a second, like what's the research behind this? Like what is all this? Who's saying this? Like obviously if you're telling me about sleep, I'm like, man, I've missed all this. You know, like I touched before, like with the diet thing, like I know in America it's very, you analyze a lot, you know. And I found when I did that, it was almost like, because I'm very all or nothing. That's it. Like I'm training, it's all in, you know, like I'm going to be a pro motorbike rider, all in. Like that's how I am. So when I went counting calories, you know, all this kind of stuff, it was all in. And then it was I almost get a feeling like, I quickly got to ride my bike and, oh, how many calories I can, like, you know, it almost took focus away from what I needed to do.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's what I struggled with the whole, you know, then I'm like, oh, I wonder how much this, like, I need to weigh. I was weighing food, like I was weighing food to eat for breakfast and counting the calories of it all and adding it all up to make sure that I was eating enough on these big 2-3 hour cycles. And, you know, so I actually found that all that for me personally, because I'm not used to that kind of stuff, it's not me, that I kind of could realize what they were saying at Red Bull for myself. Like, they were like, oh yeah, just eat healthy, blah, blah, blah. Because at the end of the day, Todd, it's like 2%. And I was like, no, it's not 2%.
Mm-mm.
It's not. I know when I go, if I go and eat Macca's, no good.
That's right.
I hate Macca's. Like, any of that sort of food, I'm just like, drive past, I'm like, how are these people eating this stuff? The only time I'll go in there is to get a chicken wrap with no sauces on it after Supercross, because there's nothing open.
That's what I was going to say, because it's the only thing that's open.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
There's
you've
a
got to
difference.
eat something.
Yep, exactly.
But that's the biggest thing that I found. And I guess I'm 28 years old, and I feel like I'm 16. Like,
that's awesome.
I'm like, I was in the hills riding my bike this afternoon. I was talking to the old man on the way home, and just like, man, this thing's awesome. Like, I love the Husqvarna motorcycle. I love everything about it. And I see Justin Brayton. I've had a bit to do with Justin when he comes over for Supercross, and he's at a high level in America in the Supercross series and stuff, and he's not young anymore, you know, but that's one thing that I see why he's still going, and he's so determined, and I think he allows himself to do that is because everything's not to the 100%. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
obviously,
you see, like, you got Dunge that did that. Like, he did everything, especially like on the Alden program, was just like so gnarly, so focused, everything. But there's like not sustainability in that. You know, you've kind of got to, like, I think that if you're going to push to that 150% focus, then you've got to go into it knowing that, all right, I might be able to do 3 years of this.
Yeah.
You're not going to be 35 racing Supercross the way that Brayton is with that mentality, I don't think.
Well, when you bring up Brayton, the biggest thing you have to think about with Brayton is what we refer to as athletic durability. I think as you get older, I think if you look at the sport of triathlon, you know, especially here in Australia, you guys have had Craig Alexander, Chris McCormick. They've gone on stamped Ironman Hawaii. Yep. They made it their playground, and they were in the prime of their career. They weren't 26 years old. You know, they're very durable. They have the experience. They've got the head case. They've got it all. You know, when I was working with Dunge, the problem that we had with Dunge is he got frustrated with the structure. That's why I was surprised when he went to Alden. I'm not surprised that he's already dropped out of the sport because the structure was just too much. The results were there. That's great. But why do we not see him anymore? And that breaks my heart. Yeah. And I don't want that to sound soft to anybody who doesn't know me from Adam. I'm just saying I wanted to see sustainability. I say it with all my athletes. I adhere to the KISS program, keep it simple and sustainable. And a lot of stuff that we do, we may not win every single moto, but we're going to be in it for the season. And we'll be in it for 7 seasons instead of 2 seasons. Now, that's my mantra. I sleep very good at night knowing that I haven't overextended him, because I'll never put his performance in front of his health, ever. That doesn't always make me popular, and I'm cool with that. I've been terminated for it, including Dunge. I'm okay with that. The thing that I always look at is, and you mentioned that whole confidence thing. You rolled into that gate, you were confident. That goes back to what is confidence. You said, hey, I knew what I had done. You know, you kind of briefly talked about, hey, I went into that every weekend, you stamped it, lowest heart rate. You know, you got the most deep sleep ever. Does that not just scream volume? The most deep sleep he ever got was on a weekend of that magnitude.
But you shouldn't have that on a race weekend. Normally, you don't get any sleep on a race weekend.
But to me, it just shows, it's almost like if I had seen that sleep data, I could have told you that was the weekend that we were going to slay it. Because all cylinders are firing on 8. But what becomes important is when that weekend is over, do we know what created that environment? Yeah,
I was going to say, like, do you know what led you to, like, having that good a sleep, and have you been able to sort of match it since then? Or
no, so that's the thing. That's the key point. And that for me is that really relaxed mentality and giving yourself the opportunity to do your job. That's my biggest thing is, you know, when you've got an old man there walking the start line with you, like, you need to get the start, like, focus on the start, this and that, and you've got mechanics and all this stuff. You're like, hang on a second, guys. During the week, I burnt out 3 clutches, man. Because I've done that many starts, it's not funny. Yous aren't changing anything. Like you said, who are yous to say? Like, all this stuff. Do you think I go to the start line going,
I want to get a shit start?
I'm just going to go and get a real shit start. I'm just going to fill my goggles with dirt. I'm going to get some in my mouth. Like, no. You go there and it just so happens that you get a shit start.
Yeah.
It's not anything. It's probably because all of these people aren't there during the week to help you do your job where they should be. And that's my biggest thing last year, and that's where I sort of got lost, was every morning I write down, I have a sheet, and we got this from the cycling, they have cycling diaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jill's formulated a thing where, 1 to 10, sleep, readiness for training, blah, 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 like fatigue, this and that.
Yeah.
1 out of 10. And then you get a score, 60, let's say. Then you times it by, what do you do? Times it by 100, divide it by 80, and it gives you your percentage.
Yep.
So I'm going into, people would have heard me last year, like going the first round. Yeah, I'm at 60%, guys. I'm building for the championship. From round 5, I'm going to start going for race wins,
Mm-hmm.
I'm winning Super Poles, we're winning races, but I'm at 60%.
Is that based on your numbers that you were giving yourself, like your scores that you were giving yourself in the mornings?
Yeah. So, like, how do you feel today? Well, and I get my phone every morning. My sleep, okay, I got 40 minutes of sleep. That's crap. So I get a 6.
Of deep sleep.
Yeah,
whatever.
deep sleep.
Yeah.
So I get 8.5 hours of sleep, 40 minutes of deep sleep. That's not so good, or blah, blah, blah. And all this, what I found with that is a little bit like you say, is you go off numbers. Like there's nothing else you can record.
Right.
You go off heart rate, because what else are you going to record it from an athlete? It's just like mechanics go off a dyno. Like my bike's got 62 horsepower, when it left to go to round 1. When it come home, it's only got 58. What's going on? Like everyone goes off numbers.
Yep.
So for me, that's what I do. And then I go to the race. How do you think you feel when you go to a race and you win a round and you're like, I'm at 68%,
Mm-hmm.
like I've got a lot left in the tank. Like don't get me wrong, you're going the race and you're putting in.
Yeah.
But like the thing that helped me last year was, like I explained, it was instead of having that tunnel vision, like I would get myself into the lead and then I'd go, okay, think what Ben said, hips back, drop the heels. Oh man, I nearly flipped it. I honestly,
sure.
You'd hate to hear me going around a racetrack. Like it is, I try and simplify things so much, but to be in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a big thing for me.
So what would you used to think about?
Used to?
Yeah, when you were shit.
For one, the pressure of the team, So when I talk about having a good group of people around you, at the end of the day, last year, DPH won both championships. Why is that? People say, oh man, like they don't do this, that, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, we turned up to the race and Dale and Tash gave us the opportunities to show everyone what we did during the week. That's just what happened.
That's it. They're not trying to manufacture things.
No.
They're not trying to I guess even like Robb was saying, they're not trying to be, what are they, what's Dale really qualified to do on race day in terms of, because that's what, like Bobby Hewitt, a motherfucker ain't going to tell you shit about what you should do. Like, he is really a lot like that. He'll just, you go around there, the vibe's great with him. Like, he'll be like, yeah, man, no, good. Yep. What do you need? It's not like this overbearing.
Oh, yeah.
Because
he's a good guy.
You're right about when you're saying that. Like, that is for them. Like, when somebody goes to the race and they're like, do this, do that, rah, it's like, that's just for them. Like, they feel good about telling somebody what to do or whatever it is, but it's like that hands-off approach, and it's just like, hey man, I'm just here to fucking bring your bikes to the race and make sure you got some good food and some aircon in there if you want to, like, the rest is on you, like, you're the rider,
Yeah.
But that's not the norm.
But think about what you said, though, because that's how his dad was.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, you're doing good, because your dad sounds like a cool guy. You're his son before you were an elite racer.
Yeah,
and he's never lost perspective on that. Then you've got Bobby, who owns a team and is like, just want to keep you comfortable and happy. And you're there going, I just want to be better. That to me is where there's a void. Because at the end of the day, when you break all this down, I don't want him counting his grams. I don't want him having to think.
Well, like, if you're his trainer, that should be your job, right?
That's exactly our job.
Yeah.
We are an analytics company. If you looked at what we do every morning, we scrape, I'm a big fan of Garmin for a multitude of reasons. So, and I'm not a brand ambassador. I don't get a paycheck from them. I've purchased all my watches.
Yeah.
So
I've bought mine as well.
Yeah,
I've got
exactly. I don't want anybody saying that we're here trying to advocate, Garmin. What I do like about Garmin.
But we will all take free watches if you do want to give us
Absolutely, yeah. Well, like you said, you want to do a beta test on it, and I'll reach out to some people in the States and say, look, let's do this. We're doing something with David Pingree right now, same idea. The thing that I want people to understand is if I'm working for Todd needs to wake up in the morning and go, this is what I need to do. What he needs to do is say, all right, Jules is making this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is what I'm eating for my snacks. I look at his burn rate for Monday. I look at what he consumed, and it's a phone call saying, hey, don't change anything. Next day, try to add a smoothie that's got 800 calories in it, which, by the way, I have a smoothie book, I have a snack book, and I have a cookbook. Open up to the Blueberry Blast, make that shake. I know it's giving him 872 calories. It's giving him enough of this, and this vitamin. That's him counting food. And this is where it's a very, very, very finite line. He wants to know the why, is willing to do, my gosh, he's willing to weigh his food. I can't get people to stay out of a drive-through. He's willing to weigh his food. Okay. But at the end of the day, I don't want his attention being spread to anything other than sleep, eat, ride. And then when he walks away from that quadrant of athletics, goes into personal, and then goes into financial, goes fishing, goes to the movies, comes back tomorrow morning. We've already raked the data. This was on that CBS special I did with Dunge when they were trying to pit me and Dunge against Roxon and Alden. The idea here is I'm asking him to eat certain foods that the mainstream media may take out of context. That's what they tried to do in the CBS special when I asked him if he had his ice cream before bed. Now, before anybody leaves nasty messages, I think I know you should always have a protein and a fat before you go to bed because it's the only two macronutrients that satisfies appetite. So if we're trying to get your sleep up and your body is hungry, it doesn't care about sleeping. It wants to not go hungry, so you're not going to sleep well. I know that's the catalyst for why you're not sleeping.
Man, I love eating like right before bed. Like all the time I'll feel like I have to eat right before bed.
But for him to eat before bed and have confidence versus he's read or somebody's told him that if you eat after 9 p.m. it's going to go on his body fat. So now he's like doubting it. This is where we get back into that confidence. I have a responsibility to create a confident athlete in my program, not because he should rake the data. That's my job. I can give the Cliff Note version, like you said. Where I was going at with the CBS thing is I was quoted as saying, I don't live in a world of emotions, I live in a world of zeros and ones. And that is the truth. If his biofeedback comes back and his heart rate's up 6 beats, and he went out and he smashed it at Coolum yesterday, we know why it's up 6 beats. Well, he's not coming in today with 10 by 2 kilometer intervals. We know that because the schedule, he knew on Friday we were going to go to Coolum on Tuesday. So when he looks at Wednesday's workout and it's an easy 90-minute bike ride, he has confidence in 90 as to why it's not 2 hours. He has confidence why it's not in heart rate zone 4 because we're going to absorb what we did the day before. That's my responsibility to the athlete and to all your listeners as well. That's what we do. Here's where I get frustrated. He's willing to ask why because he's inquisitory and wants to make sure he's doing the right. He wants to know he's doing what I'm asking right. I can deal with that. To sit and try to validate and argue with a carpenter and argue with a concrete layer and argue with a moto mom and argue with a facility owner, I'm not interested. The numbers don't lie. Heart rate, if you think about the amount of information we get off these watches, every workout I can get average and max heart rate. I've already got his elapsed time because he starts and ends the activity. I do what's called a projected versus actual. Behind the scenes, when I'm writing a program for an athlete, and again, it doesn't matter if it's a weekend warrior or if it's Todd, I'm writing a certain amount of volume on and off the motorcycle. That volume is broken down into aerobic and anaerobic. Well, what's his anaerobic numbers? I need to know what those are. We have a process and a system that we make sure that his numbers are accurate, and we do them on a 6-week cycle. What I'm getting at is I know what volume of intensity, both aerobic and anaerobic, when he wears the watch and starts an activity, simple math. All you do is you add up. I looked for 25 hours this week. He did 36. We need to have a come to Jesus meeting. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Because if I haven't earned his trust, that's why he's doing 36.
Yeah.
But if I can get him to see after 6 or 7 weeks, he's feeling better, he's sleeping better, numbers are going up, he's getting faster with lower heart rate. He's really, because I need you to come to every workout well-fed, well-hydrated, rested, and really focused. Well, he's not going to be focused if he's tired. He's not going to be focused if he's sore. He's not going to be focused if he's, all of those issues. So when I'm asking him to keep a sweat rate calculator, all he's got to do is step on a scale twice before and after a workout and document how much fluid he's consumed. Mm-hmm. So if he thinks giving me 2 numbers is too much work, then I'm probably not the right coach for him. This is a guy that's weighing his food. You think I have to worry about getting 3 numbers?
Have you ever done any of that, like weighing yourself with hydration and shit like that?
I have, yes. But not... So what I did...
Not like daily?
No, not daily. So we did a similar thing. We had a guy...
Bring this closer, bro.
I forgot his name, actually. It was in 2012 when I rode for Suzuki when Townley come back.
Oh, yeah.
And Townley whooped us at Conondale. That was day.
Hectic, eh?
Yeah.
That's still his best day ever.
Yeah.
That he said, said that's the best he's ever felt on a bike ever.
So Townley, that was the year that I sort of, it all come together for me on the 450, and I must have been 20, and man, it was hot, and I had Cody Cooper on the team. It was him and I. And we had a guy that specialised in hydration, in athletes performing well in hot weather, and he was from Darwin. So he gave us a tablet and we swallowed it, and it gave him the ability to analyse our core temperature and all that sort of stuff while we raced.
Fuck, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So he had us doing that. So obviously we stepped on the scales. So we do ice bath, step on the scales, go get dressed, and then go to the start line. It was unreal. Like, we had ice slushies. I was going it was a 35, 40 degree day, and I was shivering on the start line.
Really?
Yeah.
Had your body temperature down that low?
Yeah, it was insane.
That's crazy.
I learnt quite a bit there, but we used it as a weigh yourself, so 80 kilos, and then I come in and I'm 79 kilos. Well, you've lost a litre of water. So,
but then you'd have to measure how much you've drunk as well, right, to kind of offset it.
And so, but we have resources that all you've got to do is put in your beginning and your ending and document how much fluid you've consumed, and it does the calculation, and your goal is to have no more than a 2% loss.
So where's that? Like, is that in like an app or a web? Like,
it's just an Excel spreadsheet that we use that most people can use on their phone.
And then you just make the formulas. So all you do is put it in, and then it just spits it out.
And yet I've got people tell me that's too much information, but they'll spend $20,000 to go to a race, like to qualify for Loretta's, and I'll have somebody that'll get to a week-long race, the heat, the humidity. Now they're already dehydrated by Wednesday because they don't know what to drink. Or you have the other extreme. They walk around with a jug of water. They're pounding the water that dilutes the sodium content of the blood. Now they're hyponatremic.
Yeah.
And we know what the risks are with that when you look at Josh Lichtel and all that went down with that. So that's where I get frustrated, because I'm like, I'm sitting here trying to get you to weigh yourself before and after. Now, for the listeners that may be new to listening to me talk, I don't want to sound highly technical. I'm trying to consolidate and keep it simple. If I'm looking at 10-degree ranges and I know what your average and your max heart rate was, and you step on the scale and I know what your sweat rate was, including what you consumed, I can create a nutrition and hydration program for you. But if stepping on the scale twice before and after is too much work, then I probably won't help you very much. Now, again, I'm going back to the original comment I made. This is a guy that's willing to weigh his food. I don't want him weighing his food, because as much as he loves the structure, it becomes something else to do in his day.
Yeah, it's just too much work.
Yeah,
eventually it becomes a job. Now he's paying somebody else to do a job that he's doing a job for, and doesn't know. You do a lot with cycling, and so does your fiance. You know how many people buy wattage, whether it's a power crank, a power pedal, or a wheel, train with wattage and don't know how to interpret the data. You know how many people buy the watch and don't know how to interpret the watch? We're an analytics company. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But here's where I'm going with. Don't fucking argue with me about how we're interpreting the data, because I didn't wear your watch. It's your information. You stepped on the scale and sent it to me. You've got to follow.
Yeah, don't be mad about the data.
But yet you've got somebody that wants enough structure to feel confident. We're back to that confidence word that you can't feel it or touch it.
Yeah.
But yet When he doesn't feel confident, it manifests itself on the track. So now, once again, I have failed him as a physiologist because I'm not mandating that he gets me the data. That's why we part ways with athletes.
Yeah, but the hardest thing is that I've seen in careers is we're all result driven.
Absolutely.
We want to win.
Yep.
But you can't be when you're talking about what you're talking about.
Yep.
Because I can't come and join with you and start analysing all this stuff and then go to round one and get my butt kicked, and be like, this is no
Doesn't
good.
work, yeah.
Because that's how the mentality works.
Yeah,
these
that's
guys,
what people do.
Or some ex-rider, like you just explained, decides to pick up some kid that has won everything.
Yep.
And then he goes and wins, and he's like, oh man, Todd was the best trainer ever, And I'm just telling him, oh man, just train at 130 heart rate, because that's what mine was when I did VO2 max tests and stuff.
But that's what goes back to what we said earlier. That's why I totally respect the guys that, trainers have, and I hate to use that word, I don't consider myself a trainer. I'm a human performance specialist. And that's not to have a bigger name, but anybody can go get a weekend workshop certificate. Now they're a trainer. It makes my skin crawl. The problem that I have with it is, at the end of the day, when you look at all of this, the problem that you run into is it's the flavor of the month.
Like you said, you've done it. Like, you've tried so much shit.
Oh,
different
like we
things.
spoke about, like Robb's talking about, like you start to analyse things, and I did
Then you
like it actually come from Jill's dad. He's right into cycling. He lost a lot of weight, and he loves numbers. He's really good at that stuff, and he's got a book written down of the weights of everything. So he weighs all his food like he did, but now he knows.
Sure.
But at first, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And he lost a lot of weight. It was really good for him. So that kind of come from me. So then I phoned up my trainer, Jara. So Jara used to train with me up here, and he built a supplement company around myself because I had trouble with hydration supplements. With too much magnesium, it was giving me cramps and stuff.
Okay.
So Jared's a sports physiologist, did 8 years at uni, and so
very cool.
Like I've kind of had experience with people, and I've had experience from outside influences as well throughout my career. Like we speak about, results aren't there. You need to change your trainer. But I've been working with Jara since 2009. I've won a lot of races with him. Yeah, but it's obviously not working. Like, he's doing the same thing, blah blah. Is it because I lost my deal in Europe and I had to come back home and I'm depressed and I'm driving the track trying to convince myself that this is better than being a cabinet maker? Is that not the reason? Is it my trainer? Like, because on the weekend I got third. Like, how about saying
the trainer's the easiest thing to clip?
Yeah,
though, because there's just another one.
Yeah,
it's so
but
easy.
That's what I was saying earlier. Though it's kind of like the mechanic. The bike can't brake, but the rider can drop it 10 times. That's what we run into. Is we've done well. We have 253 amateur national titles as a company. We have 4 AMA #1 plates. If that matters to you, that's great.
Yeah.
What I care more about is and I'm not trying to name drop here, but we have Seth Hamaker with Factory Kawasaki back in the States. He's got a 2-year deal with Mitch after this year's over. Well, he just had both of his shoulders reconstructed. Just the nature of some injuries that happened this year. If the slightest thing goes sideways, we're always the first one that gets it.
It's always been the way.
Always our fault.
Yeah.
So what I do to insulate myself is I have a tremendous analytics profile that we do on all the athletes, not to justify that I'm right, but to show how the athletes improved, because it goes back to, I have a responsibility. If you're Mitch Payton and you've got X amount of dollars invested in a rider, he just simply wants to know that he's going to be able to ride that bike to its potential.
Yeah. Whether
it's strength to weight ratios, whether it's using ergometers and measuring range of motion, whatever Mitch wants to see, I've got a report for him. If we go down with the race, and at the end of the race, let's change it from Seth and let's put it on Todd. A team owner comes back and says, Todd's not in good shape. Well, the problem that I have with that is Todd can, during the week, go out and run at a 185, have no more than a 1 second deviation. Are we blaming the suspension specialist? No. Are we blaming the chassis specialist? No. But you can't tell me he's not prepared. It's not about Robb. It's not about Moto E. Here's the data. We can go out, we could do 4 40-minute motos. He has a 1 second deviation. We know the track's deteriorating. Here's his average and his max heart rate. Now let's compare it to the racetrack. The bike is such a stink bug. He never pushed his intensity. He doesn't push his intensity because he's arguing with the bike. See, that's the thing when it comes to human
there's
telemetry.
so many variables, and like that's kind of the one thing with our sport is like
that's the beautiful thing about motocross.
But like
it's
you said,
it makes it so ruthless though, because it's like you could pick anyone to blame, and like you could.
But
be
it's
like,
not. It's not even about blaming as much as it is. Isn't our ultimate goal try to fix the problem? I like what you said earlier. We're not saying anybody is right or wrong. Aren't we simply just the motor comes back and it's lost 2 horsepower? It's not that it was fabricated wrong. It's simply it's starting to fade. We just simply fix it. I liked what you said. To me, I look at the motor just like a dyno. Human telemetry doesn't. When you wear the heart rate monitor, I know the average and I know the max heart rate. I know the duration of the moto. We know what the conditions were, heat, humidity, and how the track deteriorated. Isn't our ultimate goal? That's how I teach my workshops. That motorcycle is a moving gyroscope. So if he's not gelling with the gyroscope, I'm going to make sure he's strong enough, he's flexible enough, he's hydrated, he's mentally focused to ride that bike to its potential. Shouldn't we all be working together instead of saying this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, suspension, chassis, tires, whatever it is? That's where I go back to accountability, because you know that mechanic, if that bike just completely craps out, well, it can only crap out so many times and you lose your job. Why don't I lose my job if he keeps getting tired? I have got a responsibility to find out why he's getting tired and fix it. That's why we do testing. That's why we evaluate. But I don't want him thinking about it. I like what you said. If Jules' dad, he crunched all the numbers and it was a lot of work up front. Well, I've been doing this since, I don't want to show my age, but doing this for 37 years. Yeah. Okay. So if I've got enough historical information, don't I have a responsibility to bring him into the fold to get him to see why we're doing it? Because everything that I recommend up front is just a theory and a concept until he experiences it. But ultimately, once he experiences it, he has that aha moment. Now I've just got the more confidence. It's not about validating myself. It's confidence in him. It's not about me. That's what I have such a problem with these quote unquote coaches. They want to get on TV and they want to talk about what they're doing with AC and what they're doing with this guy and what they're doing with that guy. If Todd throws my name out on a podium, I'm forever grateful. But that's not what I do. That's not why I do it. I treat myself as if I'm the Olympic Training Center. I'm trying to get the very best out of him in the healthiest manner, in a sustainable manner, to get the results that he wants. No disrespect to a manufacturer. I don't work for a manufacturer. I work for him.
With your championship, like obviously you win the championship this last year, and then you go in this year. Like, what? Are you like scared to change anything? Are you like, oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it? Or are you always trying to like look for things to be better? Like, because that would probably be like a kind of a hard mentality or like a hard thing to balance, right? Of like,
no, it is if you've got no data. Like Rob, like he'd be nervous if his athlete never gave him a heart rate or a weight or anything.
Because you wouldn't know which way to go.
What are you going to do with the dude?
Yeah, you kind of just know which direction
and like
to
I
go.
touched on, like, yes, our sport is a result-based sport because Husqvarna want me to win races, Little did Husqvarna know I can't control what Dean Ferris or Kurt Gibbs are doing, But my mentality is I can control what I'm doing, and what I did last year, here's the data. This is what I did, And like I was saying to Julie the other night, I was like, man, we just had our hard block, like it builds
last
up.
week.
Yeah, so our last week, it builds up in 4-week blocks, and now I'm on an easy week. So happy days. But the fourth week was tough. Like I did 3 days in a row of riding, like on the moto. So 3 back to back.
You're doing like 45-minute motos, eh? I'll cut that.
Nah, but
so you're doing hard motos.
Yeah,
I'll cut that for you.
It's good. No, so we're doing longer motos and longer cycles, but the biggest thing for me is what we've built up, and that's what we spoke about. Was the Germans always said you can't build a house if you've got no foundation. Like you can't just have a roof up. So that's where the high heart rate is, obviously in low heart rate. Well, the ha-ha feeling that you've said is saying like, man, when I was in Europe, I'd do 3 days in a row. Like that was their thing. Like we'd do 3 days in a row because their GPs are long and long weekends. They want to stress the body and then recover and stress the body. So I just liked that routine. So I did 3 days in a row with the cycles and stuff built into my week as a program. And yeah, my body is fatigued, but then I'm able to back it up and back it up and back it up, you know, with stresses.
So what did you mean by 3 days in a row? You do like 3 days of moto in a row, or 3 days of just hard training in a row?
No, moto. So normally, like I'd do 2 in a row and then a day off. You know, like you split, if you got 4 rides, you split them throughout the week and place your cycles in there and your gym sessions. And obviously different times of the year, you know, is different things. Like you're not going to be doing 3 times gym before you race, lifting heavy weights, low reps. Like, you know, that's where it all gets structured and built into the year. Like I'm not going to go into that, but that's where the ha-ha feeling come from. And I was explaining it to Jill the other night as I'm like, man, Michael was always, it wasn't like you need to do low heart rate to win races, you know. He was like, everything was almost like injury prevention, you know, exactly what Robb's talking about, you know. And as an athlete, you're like, man, no, man, I'm just going to win, you know. But until you get that, and that comes with maturity, like, unfortunately, I've just done this in the last few years. Like, you know, up until then, it's just like, I got to win. It's that. And it's nice to have that mentality.
Well, like Rob said, that fear-based mentality. Yeah. Like you just feel like you have to win.
Have to, yeah, exactly. Whereas until you go, you know what? It's only me on the track. When I go to the training track, I don't care if this dude's faster or slower or whatever because there's no bonuses today. You know, I'm here, I'm standing on my toes, I'm dropping my heels because I'm going to kick your ass on the weekend, you know. Whereas that mentality quickly changes to...
when you're on the gate.
Don't worry about the stand on the toes and dropping heels or anything else.
We just got to go.
I'm a second quicker at the practice track. You know, I don't even have stopwatches. I don't even have them at the practice track. Why? Because on race day, I just want to win races, man. Like, as soon as, and it's a thing with me and I don't care about anyone else, whatever. People are like, yeah, but man, you got to be hitting your marks. Got to be hitting your marks. Got to have consistent lap times. That's fantastic, you know. But there's no lap times when you're cycling. Like, you know, you're just going off a heart rate. Like, you just got a number there and you're sitting on it. If you can't feel that, if you can't feel that I'm at 100% on a motorbike or not, that's a thing. And for me... yeah,
like you've been riding long enough. Like, you should know what a good lap is.
And unfortunately, my competitive nature, it's just some people are different than others. I go to a track, I want to do 3 days at 70%, long motos, consistent motos, no mistakes. I don't want any mistakes. You know, I want to get my 80% up. You know, that's what they spoke about in Europe. Auntie was always like, we need to get your 80% higher. So on race day, you know, you're riding at 80% and everyone's at 100, exactly like Rob was saying.
Yeah.
But that's a big thing for me is as soon as my old man's there or Jason's there on the pitboard and they just go 140, you know, lap time. I come around and go, oh man, I got 138s, man. You know?
Yeah.
Next minute 137s, 136s, 136s. Oh man, that was an awesome moto. That's sick. Next moto, track's baked because that's what happens in Australia.
Sure.
Bakes out. Next minute we're doing 142s. You know, it's not that easy to tell yourself when you're driving home, oh yeah, but the track's baked. Because I don't care.
Yeah.
That's my mentality. I don't care. Like, when I go to a race and Dean or Kirk or whoever it is beats me, it's not the suspension, man. Because they beat me on that bike that I'm riding right there. I was shit today.
And their suspension might not have been perfect either.
It never is.
Yeah.
I've ridden bikes all around the world. Factory bikes, I don't like. Because I'm from Australia. We ride production-based bikes. So when you go and you ride a Japanese factory bike, all of a sudden it's got hydraulic clutches, all this sort of stuff on it, and it feels like a completely different bike. You know, you hop on these bikes. I've had it my entire career. Man, these I don't want 4 pistons in my front brake caliper. I can't even touch the front brake. I'm riding around. I'm trying to ride without front brake around the motocross track because this thing's way too touchy. Can I please have a production one? Oh, you're so funny. You're so funny. You know.
That's true, eh? That's what they do to you.
Oh, you're so funny. That's the best caliper you can get. I know.
It's too good, bro.
Brakes just slow you down.
Especially touchy ones.
You know. So there's like the things that I've experienced in my time, and like, yeah, I haven't raced at a high level like your Villapotos and these dudes, you know, but I've experienced some things, and I feel for me what works is when I go to a track and there's none of that, and I'm just focusing on, okay, this was my heart rate, this is how hard I worked, this is what I'm working on. Most importantly, during the week, what am I going to do? Because if I just do what I've kept doing my whole life and going there wide open, winning practice day lap times, what's it achieving? So that was my biggest thing last year, is I took a step back and I worked on things that Ben Townley worked. I'm still working on things now. Like, and that's what excites me, because I'm like, man, you know, I'm 28 years old and I'm learning to ride a motorbike. Like, and
dude,
that's
it's so funny. I feel the exact same way after Ben.
We were just talking about that today. Yeah.
So gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
But and I see this with some people. The people that get stuck have just got massive egos.
Yeah.
You know, and hey, I've been around you my whole life. You know, I've been told how shit I am my whole life from you guys. But it's about keeping the feet grounded, and that's what makes me who I am, and it allows me. That's what I've found. The biggest thing, you know, the biggest thing that I've found and what's helped me is just allowing myself to do my job. So going to the practice track and working on things to become better. That's all I'm about, becoming better. So answering what you spoke about before, like, am I nervous or this or that? I'm like, nah, man, this is how much I weighed last year when I was in my peak, you know? Should I lose some weight? Should I this or that? Like, that's what we're working on, these things here and there. But I can, because I know.
Yeah, you got the data.
Man, I didn't sleep. Why did I sleep so good when I won that race, you know?
Yep.
Like, what is that? Like, this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Coach Robb spoke about the sweat rate, you know? Like, I get stuck on stuff, as you might have seen. Like, I'm onto him straight away about the sleep. Like, what's the deal with this? Like, how? Why? This and that, you know? Like, I ain't weighing it because I'm done with that.
Yeah. But that shit's fun. Like, that shit is fun, and that's some of the, you know me, I get full obsessed with shit. But that's where the fun is for me and stuff, and that's what, with the jiu-jitsu thing, like, there's so much shit that I can learn in that. Like, I couldn't learn everything, so it's so it suits my brain for like that obsessive thing. But I think that's what makes shit fun. And like, even now, like we were saying, I like riding again. Like we rode the other day. When was the last time you saw me ride?
Yeah, no, but that's a good example. The other day you were so bummed because you're like, man, this and that. I was like, mate, go out there, just relax. Come into the corner a little bit slower, focus on the exit. Like, you know, that's what I'm about. Like, imagine if I'm there, you're feeling like that, and I'm like, 142, 145. Oh, man, you're fading.
Yeah.
You're fading, man. Like, you've got work to do. Like, then you go home and it's like, man, I'm like, I did shit today, like this and that. And I know it's numbers and I know need to do that. But for me...
You are right though, because the first year I competed jiu-jitsu, I fucking sucked. And like, I won a bunch of shit, but I never felt good. And I lost a bunch of shit as well. Never felt great. And I'd always be like, I don't feel as good as I do in the gym. Like, I roll anyone in the gym and I've like, feel like, oh, I could be competitive. Don't care who they are, how big they are. Like, obviously the top end guys, but just of the normal people, I was like, I can roll with any of these dudes. Go to the fucking comp, smoked by a white belt. And you're like, what? Why? Like, you get so into this mode of like, oh, this is a comp day. This is the day I've got to win this day, blah, 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 blah. And I was like putting on headphones and I was putting on like pumped up music and like, but by the time I get on the mat, I'm fucking stressed, bro. I've stressed myself out. And then now, at the Nationals this year, bro, I rolled for 40 minutes before my first fight. I was sweating my ass off and I was like full on tired, but I was just having fun with my mates. Like I never get to roll my mate Andrew. Never get to roll him. And then he's like, how do you want to warm up? And I was like, fuck man, we haven't rolled in ages. Let's just have like a proper fight. Like let's just go for it. Yeah. And then they called my name. I was fucked. And I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. I'm cooked. But I was just in that. I finally did a competition of like, I don't care. Like I'm just doing the exact same thing. Like I rolled the dude I fought like I rolled Andrew. Yep. Because it was just, I didn't change my headspace. I didn't have time to put music on. Didn't have time to think about what it meant or this or that. I literally went from like rolling with my mate to they called my name. I was like, oh shit, I need to go and do like a national championship right now.
But think about how powerful that is, because for you, he's got to do that 8, 9, 10, 12 times a year.
But it sounds like you're talking about what I'm.
It's exactly the same. Yeah. It's exactly the same, and that's why I always say your success can't be accidental. Because I like what you said. This works for me. Yeah. I'm not trying to be somebody else. And you know how much confidence, and I know this is, I keep coming back to the C word, the confidence. Athletic maturity, a little bit older, whatever. You know what works for you, and yet you've got people telling you that's not what you need to do. And you're like, listen, this is what I need. Listen, I mean, if you zoom out of our conversation and you look down on it, you've got people telling Todd that what he's thinking is not right. You knew something wasn't right. You're like, okay, I'm rolling it on the mat in training and I can't get it here. He goes out and consistency is there. Whatever the things that he evaluates is like, that's a good day at the track. And then telling him he's not doing it right. It's all about the person. It's not about, am I trying to be his man friend? No. But your success cannot be accidental. At least on my program, it can't. Reason why I say that, you come in and we go from a 142 to a 141. I'm stoked for you. Can you tell me where you did that on the track? Why do I want him to articulate that? So when we go out for the next round, he hits that same mark and keeps it at a 141, even though the track's breaking down. If he can't articulate it, he's not going to be able to do it over. You go out and you do what you roll with your buddy, you do a full blown, and all of a sudden you're like, that shit worked. Great. You now know you have a blueprint. Yeah. That's why my program is called the Blueprint of Success. If we know what we did to get here, you just simply, like you talked about the house being built, the foundation. An architectural plan is based on what? A foundation. Well, if we don't have the foundation, you can't build on that. That goes back to preseason. It goes back to you can't go fast until you can go long and slow. People don't want to hear that. At this level of racing, wide open, baby. That's all we got. So the challenge I run into is that's subject to periodization, breaking the year down, earning his trust to understand the purpose of each training cycle. Not always understanding it, but then when he gets into pre-competitive and his time trial results are faster than they've ever been and they feel easy to him, he goes, shit, all those 3-hour bike rides at a 130 is why I'm able to go faster. Next January, February, March, he has confidence in that preseason. I've got athletes I've had for 18, 19 years because they trust the system. That's great. I feel honored. But I have a bigger responsibility to show them January of 16 to January to 17 to January of 20, incremental improvements from quarter to quarter, year to year, and to get them to understand. I liked what you said. Hey, my body weight was this at my best, if I may use no pun. His fighting weight was this number. He feels good on that. Great. How did you get to that number? And then if we know that we go up 1 kilo in his wattage, because he trains with cycling, we know that his wattage goes up per, wattage per kilogram. He's got more confidence. Wait, so we started adding XYZ exercises. We started adding this cross training. It was actually easier to go faster on a 40K time trial. You go, Robb, he's not training for cycling. You're right. But he'll take the confidence from that time trial to the starting line. I know I'm faster at a lower heart rate. I can go longer without getting fatigued. I don't give a rat's ass who's to my left and who's to my right. Execute the plan. Yeah. If he can see him, he can beat him. If I'm working with him on a psychological program, if he can see him, he can beat him. He just has to stay in contact. Then we focus on nutrition, flexibility, and hydration, because Low blood sugar, he's going to start missing his marks. They start gapping him. He starts facing something. Low blood sugar. We've got to tweak it so that he's on his mark every moto. If he can see him, he can beat him. But you got to reverse engineer it. Well, now you're back to numbers, and guys are like, nope, it's too technical. Rob talks too much. Yeah. That's fine. But see, you tell your motor builder that. See what he thinks. Go ahead.
See, that's what, like, exactly like what Rob's saying there is what I base myself off, and every successful athlete in the world does. You know, they record everything. Like, that's a massive thing. Like, Rob's really highly educated in what he does, you know, so he's going really deep with stuff, and that's where you need to write stuff down, like you always say, because a lot of the stuff that you say is like, whoa, like when I listen to your podcast, I was like, sleep, man, like, yeah. And I was just like on the typing straight away, wanting to know about that, because I've never heard that before, you know, and that's probably like now after talking about the sweat stuff, like that's something that interests me, because I think I overhydrate. Coming from Cairns, my whole life, I just smash water.
Sure.
I have a habit. Soon as I hop in the car, I'm drinking water. And obviously I've got Jared's supplement as well.
Yep.
That because I know that, you know, what happens if you just drink water, blah, blah, blah. But that interests me because I think that I go way too much with that.
Well, it's pretty easy to do, right? Are you riding tomorrow?
Yeah.
Why don't you try it tomorrow? So what have you got to...
Just need the beginning weight before you get geared up, ending weight out of your gear, and then just how much fluid you've consumed from when you stepped on the scale and at the beginning and the end. That's it. And
so in between, like when you ride?
Yeah, like if you pound a liter of water over the course of a couple hours of riding, whatever that exact number is, I just need to know. Excuse me. The reason why I want people to think about this is
go for a piss, guys.
If you take in some kind of fluid and it's come through your skin through respiration or sweat, it's going to show it. It's not going to show it on the scale. So like you said earlier, let's say you weigh in at, what's your kilo as of this morning? Just like roughly
80.
So you start out at 80, you come off the bike, and at the end of the day of riding session, let's say you're at 78.
Yeah.
A lot of guys will say, oh, I lost 2 kilos. Well, you lost the 2 kilos on the scale, but you also lost whatever you took in the way of fluid. The easiest way I can illustrate it is you keep topping off your gas tank. So obviously it's burning. We think about our radiators, we check it. It's obviously there's some little bit of loss just through the attrition rate of the heat of the motor.
Yeah.
But most people don't think about sweat. They go, oh, I lost 2 kilos on the scale. No, you lost the 2 kilos plus what you took in. And creating a hydration strategy isn't as difficult as people make it out to be, but here's where it becomes a little bit difficult. What temperature was it? What was the humidity? What was your average and max heart rate? You're going to go out and work sections. Your average heart rate's certainly going to be lower than when you're doing whatever duration of moto that you're doing, a sprint moto or a long moto or maybe a fragmented set, maybe do a 10, a 5, and a 3, whatever it may be. That's where the documentation has to come in. For the listener, they may look at it and go, my goodness, he wants me to calculate I did a 10, a 5, and a 3. Well, yeah, because you're revving the engine at different at different levels for different durations. I have to look at the overall stress on the human body and know what your respiration rate was, what your urination rate was, what your sweat rate was. Because we use the word sweat rate because most people can resonate with that. But when the scale is adjusting, you got to remember your body's going through functions, urination, defecation, all of its bodily functions. You're sweating, your body's trying to get rid of that internal core heat, and you're breathing. If you've ever slept in a tent, you get that moisture inside the tent. Yeah. That's water. So it's a little bit, that's why I don't want people thinking, oh, he's hyper analytical. Yeah, behind closed doors in our offices, that's my job to serve you as an athlete. But you as an athlete need to realize, it's more than just a beginning and an ending weight. Are we going to replenish ounce for ounce? No, we're not going to, because there's just part of it. We always say it this way. You should always lose some weight in every exercise that you do. Because one of the concerns I have is people overhydrate. You mentioned maybe drinking too much water. What people don't think about is electrolytes. Most of us think about electrolytes when it comes to sweating. Because if you notice when you drink an electrolyte drink, you'll notice that you urinate more. Well, an electrolyte helps you absorb fluids. So it's kind of interesting we're talking about this because since we've been here in Australia, I've been shown a ton of hydration resources, whether they're tablets or powders or whatever, and they were thinking that it was actually an isotonic drink. An isotonic drink should have calories in it. So your body can only assimilate 300 calories per hour. I don't want this to get confusing.
Yeah.
If we go back to the original subject about electrolytes, electrolytes are part of the muscle contraction. So when that muscle becomes electrolyte depleted, it cramps.
Yep.
But then people go, well, am I dehydrated? Is that why I'm cramping? Or is it electrolyte depleted? Unless we take a biopsy, I don't know. You know what I mean? So what we want to try to do is narrow it down the best we can. The good news is when we get back to nutrition, electrolytes come from fruits and vegetables. It's pretty simple. So if you're electrolyte deficient and I look at your food logs and you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, we can eliminate the cramping by getting fruits and vegetables up. That's number one. Number two, your body can only assimilate around, there's a couple schools of thought, but for all intents and purposes, 300 calories an hour. Well, if all of a sudden you start pounding a boatload of calories, now you back the gut up, now you've got GI distress, you feel nauseous and all that goes with it, or you get diarrhea and other GI issues. Well, where's the happy medium once again? Well, that's where you have to have a relationship with the athlete to say, what'd you eat for breakfast and what time? Because your body needs 2 hours to digest, assimilate, and purge. So if your race is at 8, your last final complex meal needs to be by 6 a.m. Gives it time to purge, assimilate, absorb, and purge. At that point, the clock has started. You're on a 300 calorie per hour increment for the rest of the day. Whether that comes from a peanut butter and jelly, a Vegemite sandwich, apple and some almond butter, I don't care. Whatever you've decided works for you, which we test in training. Because I always love this. Oh, you shouldn't eat that. Really? I love that word shouldn't. You could do perfectly fine with an apple and almond butter, and that roughage for him is no problem. For you, tears your belly up. Well, it worked for him. How can it be wrong? Or vice versa. So that's where we get into the customization of it, where I'm not a textbook guy. I use a textbook to get the parameters, but then you have to make it real world.
Yeah, for the person.
It's got to be completely customized. That's where our job as an analytics company, yes, I have to get some info, but once we have it, it's autopilot. When he rolls into that, let's call it the race venue, when he rolls into that race venue, I want him to know what to eat, when to eat, and have confidence in why. What to drink, what not to drink, and have confidence in why.
Do you know, do you have more like a schedule of what you will use, like food-wise, and when you eat and stuff like that, or do you sort of...
Yeah, on race day or just
race day. Is that something that you've had tested, or it just works for you over time?
No, I've just had that my whole life. So, well, not my whole life, but basically when I come back from Europe, when I was weighing my foods and I went quite deep with my nutrition side of things, I found rice works well for me as a carbohydrate.
Yep.
So I have depending if I'm going to the track, I'll just have some spinach leaves. I'll put rice in there, and I'll take a tin of tuna, and I'll have tomatoes in there as well. That's just a basic, easy thing for me to eat when I go riding, because tuna's simple, bit of protein, and I just always try to have a bit of everything in my meals. I don't go really deep. I don't know massive amount. Like I said, I race a dirt bike. That's not my thing, and I've worked with lots of different dietitians through my career, and every single one of them tell me something different. So that's where I'm that's where it's very difficult for me, where I'm man, one lady's told me that, man, you guys burn so many calories. I remember when I was 18, she's you need to be replacing it. You should have some cordial and stuff while you're riding and that. And I'm cordial? Why would I have cordial? Why wouldn't I have something useful, I don't know, a banana or something,
Yeah.
That's just an example where I've really found training, when you talk to someone about training, it's heart rate zones, it's quite simple. I learnt when I was in Europe, I always go back to that, because it was a tricky time in my life. It was my first year racing world championship, and after round 4 I was 6th in the world championship, and come over a jump, and there were 5 bikes laying there, and I snapped my fib, collarbone, and my hip. So I was then I went to Red Bull for 13 weeks, and I say, things happen for a reason, everything, it all just works out.
Sure.
that happened to be one of my best things in my career. Like, I went to Red Bull DTC and spent 13 weeks there with a physio, sports psych, and a trainer 2 times a day. Like, I felt for once in my life, like I touched on, like, for us, we just become professional athletes. Like, we just get paid money to ride a motorbike. There's not
all of a sudden you're like, hey, you're pro now.
Yeah.
There's no, like, you don't get a bachelor in professional athletics.
Here's a bike.
There's some money.
That so-and-so wins on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you don't like it? Like, you know, there's not actually any grooming or anything like that. It's just like, you just work it all out yourself. And for the first time in my career, it was like, my name's on the board. I got to go here. Why you're taking blood? Like you said, like, it's just natural for me because I'm like, why? You know, but all these other guys have just been doing it, like Ken, since he was a young child, that it's just normal to take blood out of the ear. He doesn't know why. Well, he probably does. But, like, it's just something that they've always done.
Norm,
whereas I didn't come from that. So, I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, like you felt like you felt like you're a professional athlete for the first time in your career.
Yeah. So that's, being in that atmosphere is really something special for me. Like, coming from none of that and then just being thrown into that sort of atmosphere where it's very team feeling. Like I felt like I was part of a soccer team, like a football team, sorry, where that stuff is all, like Coach Robb said, no, you don't do that. Like, you're just told what to do. And if you don't do it, well, then you're out, someone else is in there. But big thing for me, Rob, is the sleep thing. Like, we've touched on that.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've kind of, I've experienced, I've lodged it. Like, it's that, but I can't keep it consistent. Like, I've found that, like, I'm not a big person on social media. Like, yes, I create content, but it's all for work.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Like, Jason's brother Maddie's my best mate, and he started me on MySpace, on Facebook, you know, like, and now that's,
I can't even get Todd to fucking text me.
Like, that's,
I text him today, is your phone broken?
So that's just me. But so when I do stuff like that, it's purely work, and I've found that I kind of got in a bit of a spot in my career where I was like, lay in bed scrolling, like, you know, hop on the toilet looking on Instagram, like, and I was like, and it was actually Jill that pointed out to me and told me about the blue light. And then Jara, who does the supplements and done my training stuff, like, Jara's like, man, like, football teams, they're not allowed phones on.
Last 2 hours.
So
2 hours. So
I do that, like, since a few years now. But I just can't find a consistency with that deep sleep. Like, I know when it's good. Like, it's almost like preparing for a race. You know, when you have a good race, like I explained at Coolum, I slept well. I was confident. There was nothing in my mind. Like, that's a big thing for me, is just being empty-minded. And like you spoke about, Jace, big thing, like, you had the headphones on, like, you overcomplicated.
You think that you got to do something different just because it's a race day, but
then you went and rolled and you completely forgot about it. And funny, when you were telling that story, I was like, man, I remember the first sports psych I went to, she gave me
what was her name?
Jackie?
Yeah she was a GA.
She explained to me about a football team, basketball team, and they did a test on them. And this kind of goes against what you're saying, Rob, but this is just I guess, how much mental pressure you put on yourself. So they got them to do an example of how many hoops you could shoot from whatever distance. And so half of the team, they ate well, slept well, they visualized all this sort of stuff. And then they got the other team to not sleep or anything. So they stayed up all night. And they actually did better because they went there going, I'm probably going to do not shit, very good. You know, so, and I know, you know, I've had it before on the start line. Oh man, your tire's flat, you know, and they rip your bike back and they pull your wheel out and you're there like, like, wait for me, and they finally get your bike in, the board's up, and you just look at the gate and you rip a hole shot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're like, what the hell? So that's a big thing, was the mental side. And that's kind of, I can't put a finger on the sleep thing. Like, I know you've mentioned about diet, I think is a, like.
Do you do any like meditation or any shit like that these days?
Yeah, well, I do. So there's a app called, what's
Headspace?
it called? Headspace, yeah. So it's that UK guy.
Yeah.
He's got an awesome voice,
eh?
Except it's hard not to fall asleep.
Yeah. I can't meditate before bed. I have to do it. I've been meditating in here.
Yep.
I turn all the lights off and I just put that TV light when like the room's closed, that TV light's on.
Yep.
I just put that TV light on and then I'll put a candle right in front of me because sometimes I can't keep my eyes closed. You know, in like the middle of the day, you're not tired, you just like, you have to like force it.
Yeah.
So then I'll just put a candle in front of me just so if I can't keep my eyes open, I can just stare at that and kind of like zone out and do the same thing. But yeah, like I can't meditate before bed, but that's when they say that you should meditate because I just fall asleep. Like it just doesn't feel productive to me.
But do you do the breathing one and everything where you focus on other things?
Yeah,
because I find that helps.
Yeah, but I'll try and do that more because you'd probably know a bit about this, but the physiology around like the different brainwave states that you're in. So like when you meditate, you want to be achieving like a what's it? So is a beta wave like the fight or flight one?
I'm not an expert on that.
Okay.
Like beta waves and stuff.
Yeah, so there's just like these different wave length patterns of your brain waves. So you're basically trying to meditate. So in the morning when you wake up and you're kind of like out of it, you don't really have a lot of like clear, concise thoughts and shit. You're just kind of like, you're just there, but you're not you yet. That's because your wave patterns of your brain are like really elongated. So that's kind of what you're trying to achieve when you are meditating. So they say it's better to meditate in the morning or right before bed because you're kind of going into those two sort of brainwave patterns. But if I do it at night, I'm like...
Do they go into circadian rhythm with that at all? Because I haven't looked into it. That's the reason why I'm asking.
I'm not sure.
Because, if you look at a circadian rhythm, we call it a vacation test with our clients. I want you, when you have like a week when you're just on holiday, all I want you to do is go to bed when you're tired and wake up when you wake up. Now, without taking blood samples and everything else, cortisol levels should naturally rise right before you wake up in the morning. It should be an arousal type of a hormone. As you go through the day and you get through your natural levels of fatigue, that cortisol level should naturally drop. It should be its lowest before you go to bed.
Oh, okay.
I'd be fascinated to find out because I haven't I haven't researched anything on those brain waves.
Yeah.
But this is why you see physicians and firefighters and police officers when they're awake when they should be asleep, and this is why they struggle with weight because their body is up when it should be asleep, and it drives the body fat up. What I'm always curious about when you look at that is, and I like the word you said, you should be able to do this or you should be able to do that. I hope the listeners start to recognize, kind of throw that word out. You know what works for you. You know that you should or shouldn't do it based on what the book says. And you're like, yeah, but if I do it, I fall asleep. I don't get the productivity out of it. Take that the step further. If I've got somebody, and I'll take it in the realm of triathlons, I had a girl that came to me from another program, hated the mornings, absolutely not a morning person, was not a good swimmer, but was taking master swim classes in the morning and was wondering why she wouldn't get any better. Well, you already hate the morning, going to do something you already despise, and you're not good at it. Any surprise why she set herself up for failure? And I think it's interesting with what you guys both have said, this idea that they brought the team in and they were mentally distracted and they had no fear and they just went after it. We really get into some deep things with the brain, because if you and the listeners think about this, under no circumstances, don't think about a pink cow with black spots.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
As soon as your brain hears don't, it does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So someone sitting on the gate saying, Todd, don't blow the start, don't fall in the don't. Your brain immediately reverses and goes the other way. So when you're dealing with the mental visioning, you got to take it a step further. First, you have to have the deep diaphragmatic breathing, maximizing oxygen uptake. I also think it has to be paired with circadian rhythm, which becomes tough when you have somebody that's not a morning person and they've got riders meeting at 7 a.m. First practice is at 8. I don't know the schedule exactly, but now all of a sudden you've got a rider that's being forced to perform when he's never going to perform well at that time. You've got to train the athlete to the specificity of that demand. We get this with, doesn't matter if it's amateur, supercross, moto, it doesn't matter. I'm not a morning person. Well, Loretta's, you're going to have an 8 a.m. start.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, you're going to have one.
Yeah.
8, 9 o'clock. Well, if you haven't trained yourself to get up at 7 for that 2-hour window for digestion, and then you go out and you've got championship on the line and you shit the bed in the third moto because you didn't train yourself to get up, I have a problem with that. That's irresponsible.
Yeah.
But let's take it full circle. If I'm working with Todd and we're working on the psychology side of things, and we will address your question about the sleeping side, because to me it's all relevant. If you don't satisfy hunger, your brain's hierarchy of needs are, I don't want to go to sleep, I need to be fed. If you look at a child, an infant's crying, he's crying, she's crying. You nurse the child, immediately fat, protein comes from the breast milk, child is deep asleep. You could drive a train by, a child's sound asleep. But yet we become adults and we think, oh, we can't eat fat. We can't have protein. Why? Works for a child. When did the rules change for us as adults? So number one, you got to satisfy appetite, fat and protein.
Do you eat before bed? Or like how long till you like stop eating before you go to sleep?
Well, I have a cup of tea before bed.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's not eating.
No.
But that's the key. There's no protein or fat in it.
Why don't you try, like, have you tried to do some different shit before bed or like with your nightly routine, or are you just still going, fuck, why didn't I sleep?
Well, and that's where we're going with it on
that's why I'm asking, because
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I just eat, my pasta and stuff like that. But like the other night, we went and got a gelato and I didn't notice anything. Like my deep sleep didn't really change.
How much fat's in gelato? I don't eat gelato, so I don't know.
Probably fuck all. Just heaps of sugar.
Gelato.
Sugar.
It's the Italian.
It's just sugar.
It's the Italian
Italian
fluffy
ice, right?
Yeah.
ice cream.
Yeah, but I don't think it has any fat or protein in it. I don't know. I'm not a gelato expert. So
you reckon fat's before bed?
it absolutely has to be fat. Think about a nursing child.
So
A child nurses on the cholesterol that's in the breast milk. It's high in fat and protein. Those are the only
Suck on some titties before
Those
bed.
those are the
I've tried it.
those are the
Didn't
only
know.
2 macronutrients that'll satisfy appetite is protein and fat.
Yeah.
So do 2 hard-boiled eggs and an avocado and extra virgin olive oil. And this is where I was going to go with you. You're already doing a great job getting rid of the blue light. 2 hours is the magical number. Give me at least an hour, but you're already there.
Yep.
Make the room extremely dark and extremely cold.
I run those.
That's perfect.
I've bought.
The sleep mask. You doing the sleep mask?
I've got the mask.
Yep.
And it's comfy as, and all my deep sleep is straight away.
Yep.
Like Jill reckons, she's like, as soon as you hit the pillow, you're out cold.
Yeah, I'm like that.
And like on my Garmin,
Yeah.
it's if I get an hour of deep sleep
It's
or
all
an
right
hour and
there.
a half, it's like right there, and there might be a little bit at like 3 o'clock or something.
Is that typical?
Well, it is typical, and I know we're jumping around here, but it's great conversation. When you first fall asleep, we need you to go into deep sleep as quickly as possible, because within that 20 to 30 minutes of falling asleep, that's when your body, think about like a fuel injector, that's when your body injects HGH and testosterone. That's why naps are so good. I try to have all my clients nap on the weekends.
I was going to ask you about that, because I look and I'm like, I get angry because I can't control my deep sleep.
Right.
I can control if I go for a cycle.
Exactly.
If I have to do a 2-hour cycle and I pull out an hour and a half, well, that's my
on
fault.
you, yeah.
But when I wake up and I go, man, I only did 40 minutes, I'm meant to be doing 2 hours.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes frustrating, because hormones, as you just articulated, you cannot drive hormones. As much as we joke that, our sex drive, men are always on, so to speak. How many guys do you know, 25, 30 years old, I can give you a dozen of them that are pro racers, can't get an erection.
Yeah?
Oh, hell yeah.
And what's that? Overtrained or?
Yeah, it's the adrenals are
Yeah.
overstressed because it's a hormonally driven activity. So that's why I say, if you have low sex drive, craving simple sugars, night sweats, and you're tired and you can't sleep, you've got one or all of the big signs of adrenals.
Yeah.
You got the red light in the corner trying to get your attention. So going back to like you're saying right there, if you don't satisfy appetite, your body's like, all right, I need to go to sleep, but I'm hungry, so I'm going to stay up. So when your goal is to get to sleep as deeply, to deep sleep as quickly as possible, which you're already doing, then you want to get as many cycles of that as you can through the night. That's why I was saying earlier, it's got to go deep sleep, light sleep transition, deep sleep, light sleep, and it'll be dark blue, light blue, and then it'll go that red. Transition is just going from REM 1 to REM 3. REM 1 rejuvenates the brain. REM 3, deep sleep, rejuvenates the body. If you think about a funnel, if the listeners would draw a funnel on a piece of paper, at the top of the funnel, MCT, medium chain triglycerides, high quality fats, they have to come into the funnel.
MCT oil?
No.
That shit's good, man.
Yep.
Yeah, Maddie has it here. It's like a coconut oil, right? It's like a real heavy fat. You could have that in your tea and stuff.
And that's where I was going to say with the tea, if you don't want to eat an avocado and eggs before bed, this is why I said to Dunge on the TV show, did you eat your ice cream before bed?
Full of fat.
Full of fat and protein. Now, again, before someone leaves a nasty message and says, oh, it's got sugar in it, I get that. If you want to eat an avocado and egg, go for it. I'm doing a Haagen-Dazs bar. It's just a feel-good food. To me, I always look at food as a percentage, like you're mixing two-stroke oil. If you're getting a lot of fat and a lot of protein, a little sugar is going to be offset by the fat and protein. I've done it for years and it's worked. Now there'll be somebody that says, oh, well, I have an adverse reaction to sugar. Great. It doesn't work for you, but it works for everybody else.
But then they have a reaction to vodka as well.
Exactly.
Hey.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
They go on with all this stuff. The people who do all these comments and stuff, they're out partying all the time. And
yep.
You think, man.
Yeah, Red Bull and vodka and some fucking Coke.
Talking about sugar that Dungy's eating in his ice cream, and here's old mate pumping 9 vodka Red Bulls.
Do you nap at all?
Yeah, that's where I was saying is I'm like...
Wait, pull this close to your face. I don't want to tell you.
You always say
just pull
that,
it,
man.
Just pull it and do it. It's not hard.
I don't want it near me face.
It sounds better for the people listening. Yeah, basher.
Right,
do you nap?
Yeah. I don't want to talk anymore.
Can't hear you anyway, so why bother?
And the cool part is when you look at that, so when you satisfy appetite, your body will go to deep sleep quickly. It'll be able to stay there longer, so you're getting a longer injection of HGH and testosterone. Now remember for the listeners, HGH is HGH is human growth hormone. That's what makes you leaner naturally. So if you want to recover from the load you submitted the body to, allow it to sleep. So you've got to get to deep sleep, and you've got to stay there for as many hours as possible, at least 8. Now, I know that's idealistic for some of the listeners, like, yeah, but you don't understand my life. I get it. I understand. But at some point, remember what we said earlier? Are you going to wait until your system is diseased before you're going to go, I'm going to make it a priority? Because it's always, and I lost my mom to cancer, so it's not an easy subject for me to talk about. But the bottom line is, why do we wait till we get a diagnosis to take shit seriously? If you're a type 1 diabetic and you're on an insulin pump, you take blood sugar and glycemic index real serious. Well, we have pancreases that work. Our pancreases release insulin. We eat shit food and it doesn't matter because our pancreas does all the work for us. Well, when you've got something in your body that doesn't do it correctly, if you've ever had a loved one that's a type 1 diabetic or they're on an insulin pump, it's life or death. So why wait till we get to a level of disease before we decide that's just, we were talking about, we're supposed to be the smartest species and we do some of the stupidest things. So back to what Todd was saying, I need you to get to sleep quickly. I need you to stay there for as long a period as time so we get as many sleep cycles as possible. These watches are great because you can see how many sleep cycles you get. Now we can influence that. If you satisfy hunger with fat and protein, that's going to help. You're already killing the blue light, which we said earlier.
What about hydration?
Hydration's a huge role.
Can you be too hydrated? Like if you're drinking that much water now before bed, like do you have to get up to piss? So you sleep straight through.
But people do struggle with it. So I always say...
I don't, but I don't drink enough water.
See, like as you can see, I'm like a 8:30, 9 o'clock sort of person because I'm up at 5.
Sure.
And it don't matter. I can go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm up at 5.
Yeah.
Like
that's your wake up call.
That's
your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about earlier. That's that circadian rhythm that he's programmed himself for, which is a good thing. If we get rid of the blue light, which he's doing, we've satisfied appetite. The room needs to be super, super cold. Think about a hibernating bear, literally. It needs to have no light whatsoever, no digital clocks, no phone in the room, nothing, no sounds. White noise is okay, But anytime there's a conversation, radio, TV, your brain wants to engage in that conversation.
Oh, that's so true.
That's what
it's so
we're wired
hard to block
for.
that shit out.
You can't.
Yeah,
Your
I had a nap today and the TV was on, and I
Yep.
was just like, no, just focus.
Yeah.
just sleep, bro.
Yeah. Try to talk yourself into going to
I
sleep.
was trying to talk myself into sleeping, and then it just doesn't.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Well, the brain is amazing. It's like me giving you the pink cow with black spots.
Yeah.
You know, the brain is, you can't control it, but yet you can control it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the last part, and Michaela always gives me a lot of fun about this, is go to bed sexually satisfied. Because that hormonal release, there's, outside of being nursed, there's nothing that's going to give you that same level of gratification. So if you put that package together, it's dark, it's cold, there's no light, there's no audible sounds, you've satisfied hunger and you're sexually satisfied, you're going to set the tone for a good night's sleep. Now, you don't have to on the air say if you and Jules were, amorous that night
you
before.
banging every night, bro.
But those are the things to take into consideration when all of a sudden
That's
you have
why I
that
fall
aha.
asleep so quick every night.
There is a chemical in the male
Yeah.
body that is released when you have sex.
It is for everybody,
Yeah.
male
But
or female.
No, I thought females was the opposite.
Yeah, it
No.
keeps them awake,
Yeah,
doesn't
because
it?
doesn't it keep females more awake?
No, it'll do the same. Like if they're on their menstrual cycle and they, take care of it themselves or with their partner, those cramps will go away almost immediately.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna write a book on it.
What about the?
More sex, the better.
What about
Every day, 3 times a day.
Poor Harder.
I'll buy your first copy.
But I thought, I always thought that, like that.
Yeah.
Because for guys, you just like conk out pretty much straight
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
But for girls, it's the opposite.
Revs
I thought
them
that
up,
was
I
it.
thought.
Well, and
different
there's, and I
chemicals.
haven't heard that, so I don't want to come out as sounding ignorant, like, oh yeah, I'm the authority of it. I'm just saying historically, that level of relaxation that comes with
Yeah.
it is a great way to complete the day. And if we
Hey,
go
man.
back, to the overlapping of circadian rhythm, now you got low levels of cortisol, you've got that hormonal release, you've satisfied appetite. Man.
Yeah, it's like what boxes can you check for the system to be okay with
Well, it goes
shutting
back to
down?
Todd's original question, though. How come one night I can get it? It just happened to be the night of Coolum, and he nailed
Did you
it.
have sex before Cool?
Nah,
Before the Sunday?
that's the only time. I got this thing that I don't race night.
Really?
Yep.
So who
It's
told
just
you
the
that?
thing. No one. It's just me.
Why? What's your
Because for
thinking?
some reason I kept axing myself when I was younger.
Right, so you-
So I got this bit of a thing. But then other people, like I remember
forward.
my buddy Ty Simmons, it was the other way for him.
Yeah.
Like
So
he
he'd
couldn't
do-
race unless he did.
Well, Valentino Rossi, like you hear like famous stories of Valentino Rossi
I can only imagine.
with like a full bus of bad bitches. Like that was his thing. And he'd literally
Before
like,
every night.
bro, no, like
Oh,
before
before
the
the race night.
fucking race. Like on this, everyone else
Like a-
is on
like
the
a
start
rock
line.
star going behind the stage, literally.
Like on the
What?
start line, everyone's like grid walk and he's in the trailer banging chicks.
No way.
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't know him obviously, but like this is stories I've heard from everybody.
His
Yeah.
results are pretty good.
Yeah, and he was just like, he would have a trailer full of
Man.
chicks and be like banging as he's walking out to the start line. But that could just be that whole thing about like not wanting to think about the
It
race.
works for him.
Yeah.
It goes back to it works for him.
So
And
you've always just had that superstition. I never knew that
Yeah.
about you.
Yep.
that's why Jules doesn't go to the race with him anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's like, man, I'm not being part of
Yeah,
this.
this is a waste of my time. Why am I going?
Oh, this is shit.
But I love it though, because now what you can do is literally you can test it,
Yeah.
because it's a really simple routine, even like you said, you're an early guy to go to bed,
Yeah.
you're brushing your teeth, you have that, or excuse me, do like a smoothie or an avocado and eggs or, avocado toast or something. Document. And then once you know it works, that's what I don't want the listeners to get overwhelmed with. So you don't have to do it every day. Find out what works and then just simply do it.
Yeah.
That you're Jules' dad, once he figured it out, he's
Yeah.
not having to weigh the grams. You just kind of know what they are,
Yeah,
and boom, you
yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And if you go back full circle, whether it's Red Bull, whether it's the Olympic Training Center, you've got to document and you've got to be open-minded to the idea that the numbers, I don't want to say don't lie, because you can fabricate numbers to sing any song you want. I'm not naive. But on the flip side of that, if you understand what works, now we're back to I can build Todd's confidence. Now we get into what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Is he confident because of what he's accomplishing, or is he accomplishing a lot because he's confident? Well, obviously they've got to become interchangeable, which then goes reverse engineer this. We got to know what he did before he went to bed, we've got to watch in the details that show us the result. Do you know what you did to create the result? Take him to the track.
Yeah.
He peels a second off. When I was working with Dunge and we were at the goat farm, a second at that level, I mean, that's like
Huge.
4 minutes for you and I. It's huge.
Did Dunge do sections the way that Ricky did?
Mm-hmm.
So he worked on sections a lot as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because did Ben ever tell you about that stuff? The section shit. Do you ever do that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays, yeah, that was pretty cool hearing the way that Ben would talk about that whole sections deal.
Yep.
But yeah, I never knew if Dunge did the same thing.
Yep. Well, with being there with Ricky and stuff, I mean, obviously there's a huge influence there. And I just always love being around Ricky because he and James, I think we alluded to this in the last show, they just have an eye. Todd will see things that you and I just won't see. And then there's things that James and Ricky would see that just couldn't be seen.
Yeah. Just Jedi shit.
Well, it to me, the best example I could give you was Barnett had just built our track at the goat farm. And so you've got this track, no one had ridden it. And Ricky and Dunge are out, and we're sitting on the finish line jump, and Ricky just says, well, how would you do this section? And Dunge, right-hander, it was a single onto a tabletop, single, another tabletop, double into the corner. And Dunge explains it, and Ricky goes, no. You come out and you'd seat bounce that, and you would triple that onto the single, go over. Dunge's like, there's no way. And Ricky just goes up, gets geared up, just first lap, just sends it. It's just that's a set of eyes that, because I wouldn't have looked at that and thought that could be doable.
Well, even the other day, like just when we rode the sand track the other day, and there's like, where we were sitting, you come out of that tree section, and then you go right-hander, and then that shitty left tight thing, and then like me and Matty just whoa, and then Todd just went bop and doubled his way through both of it. And I was like, oh fuck, that's like gnarly, like I couldn't do that. And then I was thinking about it, I'm like, it's not really that hard, like it's two really little doubles. You've just got to like do everything right before it, and then just do the jumps. Like you've just got to time it out right, concentrate, focus, and just like do those two little things. But when you put it together the way that you did, it looks like super fast and super gnarly. But at the end of the day, you're just setting yourself up to do that one thing right, and then you're doing that all over the track.
Had you been there before?
Oh yeah, that place.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the reason why I'm asking. When I was working with Chisholm, and that's when he was teammates with Stewart, there was this small track that was at the end of, I don't know if you remember Kyle Keelan.
No.
Kyle Keelan, he was riding for Butler Brothers. His dad killed it. He's just a great family all the way around. They had this track that was down at the end of their street. Randy Yoho, who owns Dade City, had this piece of property. Well, you've got Chisholm and Keelan and all these guys ride it all the time. Well, that's when Josh Grant was riding for Factory Connection.
Yeah.
He rolls up in his van, never seen the track before. And this is what I think is so cool about this level of racing that Todd's at. Josh does a couple stand-up laps, comes out of this left-hander and completely seat bounces an entire section that no one had ever done.
Yeah.
But those guys had put 25,000 laps on this track. My point is Josh comes up, sees it completely different, and just completely does something that no one else has thought about. And I remember seeing that. I was like, how in the heck could he do that? And then, of course, you go to Daytona, and you have that wall that James seat bounced in the main event. I would have never seen. I don't want to get into Adderall. I don't care if he's had that tunnel vision or not. Just the fact that you
shit
saw
doesn't make that much fucking difference. I had Adderall last
still,
week. I was still me.
That was still his idea. Yeah, you're not going to seat bounce a wall, right?
No.
I mean, it's just crazy.
I just set up the podcast quicker. That's it.
And that's where you realize you're like, it's him seeing it completely different than how you looked at it, and then he does it, and you're like, well, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
that's the difference between a good athlete and a world champion.
Oh,
man. Speaking about world champions, Jeffrey Hurlings.
Yeah.
Oh.
Man, in 2018, we're at Lommel, and we're just training, right? Pull up at the training mechanic, and Jeffrey comes around. It looks like he's on a different track. Like,
unbelievable.
Yeah, in the sand. Like, it's just...
That's what we were saying the other day when we were right with you. We're like, fuck, Todd's fast. Hurlings smokes him.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's so gnarly to think about.
Well, we said that today. How can you fathom that? Like, that guy that got third, and you're like, how are two guys better than him?
Oh,
Go ahead with your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, but Jeffrey, so we're sitting there, and he comes around. It's at Lommel before the finish, and it was waist deep bumps. Like, it's
Yeah.
gnarly during the week. And he just comes around and he just 2 feet on the pegs, around like wheelies the bumps around the corner. And then he just goes, picks it up like halfway down the straight, wheelies, and then goes, and there's like 2 big bumps around the corner like that. And he, from back here, just goes, boom, and jumps. Have to be 15 or 20 meters. I mean, like a long, I've seen lots of people ride and you're like, oh, that's cool, but this was like, my jaw just dropped and he just jumped so far, landed into it and just went out like that. And I was like, I'm just going to do that today. Like,
wow.
I'm just going to work on this section and I'm just going to do that. I was there, man. I think I did a couple tanks of fuel just trying to do it.
Oh, really?
I couldn't get my front wheel to it. Like, that is the difference of how fast, just that overall speed that he carries around the sand track. Like, I was just blown away.
How are you supposed to like race that dude?
No, you can't.
Like, what were you
Honestly.
thinking on the start line? Like, when you had to race that guy?
No, like,
Racing for second.
man, like, honestly,
That sucks. Eh?
That's a horrible feeling.
it is. It's difficult because, like, I broke my collarbone then, and I come back from injury, and we're riding it like it was a basic hard pack track in Holland, and Jeffrey's that's his track that he rides a lot because he's a sand master, so he rides
He wants
this
to
track.
ride the hard pack shit out.
Yeah, and now he's an overall killer, But back when I was in there in 2014, I was riding there a bit when he was on an MX2 bike.
Okay.
And, him and I were not so different on that. He was on an MX2 bike, obviously. I was on 450. But on that track, it's just a basic hard clay black soil track. Tabletops, nothing difficult,
Yeah.
So we were pretty similar then. But then we go to sand, he'd just smoke me. Like, he was night and day different. But now he's
He's not any different everywhere.
Yeah, now he's upped his game on the hard pack stuff. He's just, he's solid. But anyway, went to that track, and I think it was Paul Arn or there was a top level rider there, and I was like a second and a half off, and I was like, oh man, I'm feeling good, like blah, blah. And I said to the practice mechanic, I was like, oh, what's Hurlings do around here? And they're like, oh, he's 10 seconds quicker.
Oh.
And I was like, oh yeah, the track must have been sick. Like, it must have been smooth,
Yeah.
And they're like, no, he'd be 10 seconds. And they're laughing. I was like, oh yeah.
Seconds.
And then we like drive back to the van, and I'm
What,
like,
is this on the hard pack track or the sand track?
no, on the hard pack track.
Really?
Yeah.
10
So I'm
seconds.
thinking this track is just like ripped, like, nice ruts, not rough
Yeah.
tabletops. Like, it's not a track to be getting 10 seconds on. Like I said, I'm a second and a half off the guy that's doing good,
Sure.
And at that point, I was like around the 10th, 11th, 12th place at the GPs. Like, I was nowhere, So I was like, man, that's gnarly. Like, normally when I was racing GPs, if you're within the 3 seconds of the winner, like, you're,
It's good.
you're there for top fives kind of thing. Like,
What were lap times on the track?
They were high, so they were the 52s, I believe.
And 10 seconds faster.
Yeah.
See, that's when you look at a percentage, that's what blows my mind.
Would it have been
Yeah.
a 152 or like a 252?
No,
or
one. So it
152?
was a track like Moree.
Yeah,
Moree
yeah,
track
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just flat,
But
like
a 2
no
minute,
hills.
let's just round it up to 2 minutes. 10
Yeah.
seconds on a 2 minute lap time as a percentage, that's freaking insane.
So, like, for example,
Demoralizing.
Yeah.
like,
Damn.
this year, like last year, we went over and raced like 3 of the AMA ones, and I think I got 10th. I was behind Cooper, so Cooper got 9th. I got 10th in the qualifying at Colorado, the high one.
Yep.
So, like, and I think we were maybe 2 off the lead, off Tomac or whoever qualified first there. So, like,
it's not that crazy.
but when you're around the top, when you're around like a top 5, I mean, when you're like within 2 seconds, you're around, your 10th or 15th.
You're in it.
You're kind of there.
Yeah.
I'm not at that level anymore. Like, once upon a time I was getting 4ths and some podiums in the GP. I'm not there anymore, But 10 seconds off, I'm like, man, come on. And I just remember I'd ride and then go back in because I'm with Jeremy Seawer and that, and he's faster, but not much,
Sure.
It's a practice day. It's smooth. There's nothing difficult. So I'll go back to van. I'm like, we eat lunch. I'm like, 10 seconds. You reckon? Like,
exactly.
It was just with me. I was like, I'd love to see that, eh?
I can imagine
you
too, cunt.
I'm just thinking, I just couldn't let it go. Anyway, Hurlings turns up towards the end of the day. Boom, 10 seconds.
Track's rough as fuck. Just clapped out.
No. Oh, yeah.
But by the end of the day, like, it's not like he's riding
not
a fresh
fresh.
first lap.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like,
Legit 10
my
seconds.
point, I was just like, this guy is incredible. Honestly, because I just kind of look back when he was a kid, like when I was a kid as well, when we were over there, and I went riding with him a bunch of times and stuff, and to where, like, and he was the sand king, like, and don't get me wrong, he won world championships, but now I'm just like, it's just so.
So do you reckon you've got slower since you were on the podium in the GPs, or just they just get quicker at a crazy rate?
No, that is the funny thing.
Yeah.
So, like, I was over there on the Honda, and Yarif's like, man, what are you doing? Like blah blah. And I was like, I'll give you some facts. Like, I got 14th, I got 12th at Indo. I'm like, I'm battling with Bob Rashef, Max Nagel. You know, like, I beat him in some races. That's a podium. Like,
yeah.
When I was over there, I haven't changed. None of us have changed. It's just all these other punks are in front of us.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Why do you reckon that dudes like that can get that much better? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, you're not slower. Like, you riding at Coolum, when I saw you on the Sunday at Coolum, that's probably the best I've ever seen you ride. Like, you look fucking awesome. And it's like, that version of you, better than the version of you that got a podium. Yeah. You couldn't podium in the GP right now. Yeah, but like when I was, and it's just how it is, we're older dudes. So when we podiumed, you know, Hurlings wasn't in there. He was MX2. Yeah. Tim Geyser, Jeremy Siwa, like all these guys. Fevra stepped up my second year when I was there, and he won the world championship. Yeah, yeah. But like all these guys, you know, they weren't there. So they're just coming up. There's a level, and that's what makes Tony Caroli just incredible. Yeah, because true, huh? Been able to cover everybody. Every single other person, like I stepped back. Like at the last round at Imola, I'm battling with Tommy Searle. Yeah. And both Tommy Searle and I caught up to what's his name? The Pommy. Anderson. That was on Ice 1. Oh. Just brain fade. Oh, Anstie. Yeah, Max Anstie. Yeah. So we caught up to Max, and like I'm like, it's kind of funny. I went back and I was like, man, this is insane. I just had a hell race. Like, I mean, we're nailing each other. Like, I hit Tommy Searle, and then he's tried to hit me, and I'm pretty wide, and he's ended up on the ground. Where things are going everywhere. GPs are insane. I mean, we're going for it, and you've just done like a full day before you've even scored a point. Right. Like, your body's fatigued, and you're going for it. There's Roost, and there's all these people going everywhere, and they're aggressive in GPs because at the end of the day, there's 20 dudes that are so fast. So it's just carnage. Yeah. It doesn't get so spread out like you think. And so we're just going for it. And I come over and I was like, that was the sickest race ever. Like, caught up to Max. Like, Max, I think he podiumed 3 or 4 times that year. Yeah. And he's still doing really well. And he's back battling with me in 14th. Yeah. And Tommy Searle, you know, I was there racing with Tommy Searle. Like, the level hasn't changed. It's just the new dudes just come in and get so fast. Yeah. And that's what makes, at the end of the day, it's world championship. Like, that's how it should be. Yeah. It's the best in the world. And now, because of that age rule, it is. When I was there, it was kind of the new thing. Just as that started, yeah. So the MXGP class was, I wouldn't say thin, but it just had like your DeSalle and your Caroli, and you had your few dudes that just won, like your Tomacs and Roxons, you know, they just won like that. Whereas now, like I just explained, Anstie's in 14th.
But like you said, the Caroli's still covering everybody. That's what's so amazing. It's incredible. And not that I had a lot to do with him, but like we raced Italian Championship and we'd go across on the ferry and stuff like that. And like one memory that stuck with me was our first race that Mitch just raced at Sardinia.
cold little island. It's in winter because everywhere else is frozen. Deep sand track. You had to stand like on the 45 because the wind was blowing so hard. Reminds me of Melbourne a bit in winter.
Yeah.
And we're on the start line. Jill and I stand there watching them X2 start. And I'm like, oh, there's Crowley. Like, I'm just that pumped. I'm like, there's Crowley. He just comes walking straight over and he's like, oh, hey, Todd, I just want to welcome you to Europe. Like, blah, blah. And I was just like...
Very cool.
I was like, man. And like, my old man was over in his truck getting photos, gave him a thing. And like, when we're on the ferry, he comes over and talks to you. And his wife, Jill, always comes over and says hello, gets on with my chick, Jill, well. The GP, they're really relaxed. And like, apparently, Jill cooks all the pasta for him.
Yeah.
So he just eats, you know, it's not rocket science.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I was at that track at Sardinia, like just hard to do 30 minutes around it.
Yeah.
And he was doing our motos. So he had his mechanics there. He'd just come out of the thing and he'd do an hour moto, fill up halfway, hour moto.
That's what Kenny used to do. When Kenny first moved to America, I used to go to Kahia Creek with him. No one else was there. Like, he'd just go there when it was just him by himself. And he'd do 30, pull in. Fada would fill up the tank, fill it back up, and he'd go out. And just, it was literally like a Formula One pit stop, like boom. There was no fucking around. It was literally just like no water, no nothing. Like, pull in, fuel,
go
out. And yeah, it's like, it is such a like an old school GP thing. I think that's why Ken's dad got frustrated with like the training and stuff here with Ken, because like, in America, because he just was like, he would run with Ken, they'd do everything, just do like our motos, and then they'd go to America and it's just like all this fucking extra sort of shit that everyone was trying to get him to do, and that Euro mentality was just like...
Yeah, and that interests me, Rob, because you're obviously from the States and got a really high education on all that sort of stuff, and don't get me wrong, the Europeans aren't... Like, they're not mucking around, but like I kind of touched on, like, I've experienced it with, like, going really deep with my nutrition.
Yeah.
And then being like, hang on, it's just taken all my focus away, that the thing that I actually do, that I kind of just stood back and I'm like, okay, as long as I'm doing it well and it gives me the chance to focus on what I need to do, like when you weigh it up, like diet opposed to riding your motorbike, like it needs to be here, you know, like it, and that's where I kind of went a bit like this, like I chased the diet thing so much and I sacrificed the riding part.
Yeah, exactly.
That because that's how I am. I go 110%. So I stood back a little bit with that and just kind of looking at the European side of things, like your Stride bosses, all these successful guys that they all live in Belgium. So you see them all the time at the test tracks and stuff like that. You know, they're eating waffles and like it's not a science
to them.
Nah, but the one thing they do is they work so hard. Like I explained, like you go to tracks and it's just being exposed to that. That's the thing that I kind of felt last year when I went to the States. I was like, go to Glen Helen, you know? And I was like, I don't want to go to Glen Helen after I went there. Yeah. The thing is dead smooth and wide open. Yeah. I'm sketchy. Like, I just want to go to a track that hasn't been prepped for like 6 months. That's just like, bruh, and my back muscles are crying and my legs are burning. Like, I'm not, like, I like that. I enjoy that, you know, that technical side and where the body's blowing up and you're working. Like, I don't get kicks out of just going wide open and, oh man, it's 35 minutes. Like, I better pull
Gotta go. Yeah, you know? Exactly.
So that's a good thing, a good question for yourself. Like, from both sides, like, how do you manage that? Like, obviously we see a lot of things from America. Like, here in Australia, we only look at America mostly. It's only these last, say, 5 years that we started sort of looking at the world GPs and stuff. But when I went and raced there, I didn't know any of the riders. Obviously Crowley and that. Sure. But I didn't know half the riders, but I knew everyone on the start line in America. Like, we look at a lot of stuff in America. Yeah. And what's your thoughts on that? Like, the way that, can you go too deep with certain things.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you look at the influx of the new riders and the GPs, they did have what Kenny had at 12 years old, and they've done something with it. So when those guys jump into the premier class, like you said, there's immediately 10 guys that foundation is there, the speed is there, but they've taken the information they've been given and actually done something with it. And I think that's the difference. If you go back, unfortunately, to when you turned pro, you said at 16.
Yep.
You know, what information wasn't even around at that point?
Yeah.
You know, now you look at, let's say, 12 more years, that's a child that was 6 years old,
Yep.
is now 18 years old in those 12 years and has the Red Bull experience and is doing something with it, and then goes in the premier class. That's why they're frog hopping past a generation of you.
Yeah.
Because what lack of knowledge you had puts you in 10th through 15th and allows them to go 1 through 10.
Yep.
Now, going back to your question about, you know, I think, I don't want to sound jaded. To me, you've got to have your food and your sleep and your hydration as the foundation, which then allows you to take the riding to the next level. But I think riding has to supersede everything.
Yeah.
However, it's got to be balanced with the food and the sleep.
Yeah, you got to be like looking after your body to like get the most out of it.
To get the most out of the ride
Otherwise,
session.
there's no point riding if the body's not.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting what Todd's saying. I think riding has to supersede it, but it's kind of like you could have a factory bike that has no fuel and somebody's P-Dub is going to beat it because it literally has fuel. As bad of an analogy as that is, that's the way I look at it. Is it's like, I don't want you, and this is where I'm not trying to sell our services to listeners. What I'm saying is that's what we do for a living.
Yeah.
I don't spend 15 hours a day living, breathing, and eating, getting my bikes prepped, getting to the track. I'm going to help guide the athlete what to do at the track, because when you look at the time that you spend on the motorcycle, you have to treat it from an energy system standpoint. If I'm training a professional triathlete, we don't do speed work every single day in every single discipline. So there are some days it's even tempo, it's an active recovery. Sometimes it's simply aerobic enhancement. And then there's days that it's speed work, it's race pacing based on, like you said, periodization. There's a right and a wrong time to go fast. There's a right and a wrong time to go slow. That's periodization. That's what we do for a living. When you go to the track, you've got to be able to balance that out. That's why I was saying when I do the workouts, I do a percentage, how many hours, what percentage is aerobic and anaerobic off the bike. Take that full circle. When you look at the way that the Europeans ride, everything hinges around the ability to ride. But what they don't neglect is the balance. They're not afraid to eat a waffle. They're not afraid to eat a baguette. They're not afraid to eat a bagel, you know. But this is where the listener may take it out of context. When you're already burning 5,000 calories, I'm not really worried if it's going to be a white bagel with some cheese and some ham on it. I'm just glad that you can pick up an extra 600 calories.
Yep.
Does that mean that I'm advocating that you don't eat healthy? No, I'm just saying we're hitting a point of diminishing returns where you simply aren't getting enough calories.
Yep.
So if it gets taken out of context, so be it. I don't mean for it to, but that's the reality that we're dealing with. When you look at, and I think it's interesting because I look at Jet Lawrence. Obviously, we haven't seen Hunter yet, but I said this to you even the last time we were here. I'm amazed how much Australia thinks that Americans are on a supreme level. And I've been saying it now for 2 years since we've been coming over here. I think the receptiveness to learning, the work ethic, you guys have us beat hands down. You were talking about if you go to Glen Helen, if it's not the way you saw it, they won't go out and ride.
Yeah, we're from a different era. Like I'm going to Coolum tomorrow where it's not prepped. Like
Purposely.
Because they've had a race but apparently it's getting rained out. So I'm going to a sand track where it's on a private property.
Yep.
And it's waist deep because I just want to be wheeling like this and my back muscles hurting.
Absolutely. But if you're Glen Helen and you're getting money based on how many people sign up and they don't put it on their website that it's been groomed, nobody shows up.
Yeah, it's wild.
And our
But you'd hear stories like the good dudes would always rock up to Glen Helen at like three
in the afternoon.
at like Baggett.
Rough.
Yeah, Blake Baggett was famous for rocking up super late in the day. And same with Alessi. Like you wouldn't see Alessi out there until like 3 o'clock. It was hot as fuck and super rough.
Yep.
So like you'd hear though. I think that I think that those guys that always were like super successful, it's like they were the ones that would have that mentality that you did. And then the guys that weren't were the ones that were like, all right, we'll be at the track at 9, we'll be out of here, and then we'll go do our little cycle at after lunch. We'll hang out at Chipotle, and you know.
Well, and this is where I'll probably get some people that will not like me anymore. But to me, this is where we've gotten into the pussification of the sport, because if the track gets rough and I'm not riding well, it's got to be, how many times, and I hate to say this, but how many times do you hear it? Oh, bike setup, bike setup, bike setup, bike setup. Can't get the bike dialed. Well, the track's rough, and you simply don't want to do what it takes. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Stanton or Bailey or if it was Ward. You go back to those hardcore days. At the end of the second round of practice, or however that was set up then, they didn't complain about the bike. This is what I'm going to race today, and I'm simply, this way I got to make it work. Today's riders nowadays, it's always the bike setup.
Yeah.
So when you look at the European guys, maybe I'm wrong. You spent a lot more time over there than I have. I don't ever remember hear Caroli or Hurley saying the bike sucks.
No, but do you know why? What I've seen is in Europe, obviously, yes, there's tests.
Absolutely.
They've got testers that test the products for then the GP riders to try and to better. You know, that's their system, because KDM's there and everything. But you don't really change your bike much.
Mm-mm.
Like in America, you know,
Constantly.
man, I went back in between, like I went back for Moto after Moto 1, made some changes to the bike and come out and got the win in Moto 2. Changes the bike.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear that they just changing stuff all the time, like big things, like changing different linkages and stuff like this in between Moto 1 and Moto 2.
Like, wasn't Medi riding different bikes in between motos this year?
Yeah, and I'm like, man, for me, like when people say, I'm not one for that, like, because as far as I'm concerned, this is what the bike's doing. Like, today's the test, so I don't care what lap times, anything like that, because today, and like I explained, I'm not really a lap time person.
Yep.
Today's about getting the bike better. So I ride around, and I know people like to, but you can only gauge off lap times and this and that. And I'm like, man, it's about feel.
Yeah.
Like, I know lap times and stuff like that, but like, I don't know. For me, it's the bike is not balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's diving in the forks, making the ass light, you know, blah, 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 going on. Today's about testing, fixing your bike.
Yep.
Then tomorrow's about lap times and going fast.
Absolutely.
You know, like that's how I sort of work. And I'm like, when I come in after a race, it's like, man, I got my ass kicked today. Do you reckon we can try some stuff on the bike, like this and this?
Sure.
Like, that to me is productive, not bike shit. Like, it's just ego, like you said before.
But that's where I think it goes back to your original question. When I look at the work ethic that you guys put into it, there's an appreciation for everything you get, because there's not $1 million budgets, there's not $1 million salaries.
There's still dickheads,
There's always going to be those for sure.
Yeah.
But I have to go with the Hunter brothers. You know, when you look at Jet and you look at Jet and Hunter. Well, obviously we haven't seen Hunter race. We have Jet, but look at Jet, 16 years old.
He didn't care.
He didn't care. And everybody's complaining the ruts, and they're complaining. And again, I'm not anti-American or anything else. I'm just answering your question specifically. I think the Americans are going to start to get kind of rivaled a little bit. We're already getting our asses handed to us outdoors. And then we say, it's because we're a supercross specialty type. I don't buy that. We're racing more supercrosses maybe than we've done in the past, but we only race January through May. It's not like we race January through October and then we go do 2 months of moto. I don't buy that. So if you look, and we talked a little bit about designations and it being a pride thing, and you want to get people fired up, talk to Stanton, talk to Wardy, talk to those guys where it's a long seat. There's just not a level of appreciation for it. There's not the level of, I hate to say it, I'm not a pro, you are, but it's refreshing to talk to somebody that says, I want the track to get deplorably rough, not come in and say, I couldn't go fast because the track was rough. Yeah. And that's what we were hearing. It's too rutted. It's too this. It's too that. Well, it was the same for the other 21 guys on the track. So, and you look at Jet. Jet just freaking cakewalked it. Yeah. And I still have feelings. I haven't talked to Jet. You know him. I don't. to me, he looked like he came in a little tired, and unfortunately, yard darts himself at the very. I don't think Ferrandis caused that wreck. I mean, he knew he was on his last lap.
The reason why is that he threw it away before. Like he had 11,
4 times before, yeah.
Blew a 12-second lead. That's why he crashed in the last lap.
But that's what I'm saying. To me, that's a fatigue issue, low blood sugar. We could sit and analyze that on my own opinions. But when you watch him at the beginning, it's not like he was out there for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
He's out there, lap times are what? Just over a minute?
Yeah.
At that level, you can't go fast for 15 minutes. That's a rider that came to the race tired, in my opinion.
I think the crash fucked him. Like,
he picking that bike up.
Well, I just think he would have just hit the panic buttons. He would have just had he would have been in a comfy flow of that 11-second lead. But he could have crashed because he was tired.
But he gave that lead up before Ferrandis was right on his tail end.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? He was by himself essentially.
Yeah.
Let's give it half of that. Let's give him 6 of those 12 seconds. He gave those up. As if I was Todd's physiologist, I'd be like, we missed our food. Now, I'm just using it as a hypothetical. We'd look at heart rate data because as a cell becomes dehydrated, think about the surface area of a cell. As it becomes smaller because it's dehydrated, it can carry less and less oxygen. So the heart rate's going to keep going up and up, delivering less and less oxygen. So the body's getting more stressed, but desperate for oxygen.
Yeah.
Hydration. You mentioned it earlier with sleep. Now again, I'm armchair quarterbacking this big time, but when you look at Jet, you look at his qualifying, you look at everything looked great, but then all of a sudden, boom, he throws anchor. That's just not Jet. He's not an accidental champion. He just, something went wrong. So if I was Johnny O working with him, I'd be really looking at nutrition. I'd want to know what his sweat rate was after that race. Even though he may or may not, I know he got injured, I would, not that we're going to say, hey, before you go to the hospital and get your shoulder looked at, step on the scale. But that's what that's what your motor guy is going to look at.
Yeah.
If that thing grenaded, he's going to download the data. The difference is you're dealing with a human versus a machine, but they're still downloading data. That's what I would be looking at, whether we're at practice or whether we're at Coulomb. We've got to know the information. And another thing too, what I find interesting is if Todd has a horrible day, everybody wants to microanalyze it. He has a great day, nobody wants to analyze it.
Yeah.
To me, you can learn more from your better days than you can your bad days. Now, I don't want that to sound hypocritical. Obviously, you learn a lot in your bad days, as Ricky says all the time.
There's data in the good days too, which is like you said, that sleep.
Well, isn't our goal about duplicating success?
Yeah.
But yet we don't blueprint what we did to create the success. He has one night of good deep sleep, but can't understand why.
Yeah.
That hurts because you can't carry it forward. Well, eventually you get to a level of depletion. That's what we're trying to avoid. So when we look at why is there that disparity in the Europeans and all that, to answer your question, I think we blame everybody but ourselves. If I could sum it up in one comment, we're not into accountability and responsibility.
Yep.
This country, now that this is our 3rd trip over and we've spent quite a few months here, it's a difference of night and day. And anybody who follows me in the States may think that I'm a jerk now and may call me names, and that's fine. I'm amazed at the difference. There's an appreciation for a track. Not of the 13 tracks we can go to in a 30-minute window, this one's in bad shape. It's like, we're just glad there's a track open. We're riding I don't want to mention any names, but we were riding at a particular facility this weekend, and the track was wet. We had a deluge, but out of those 4 guys riding, not one of them complained about it until it shaped it up. These guys in the States would have packed up and gone home because the track was too wet. It's just like the appreciation to ride is completely different. Guys at home won't ride for 50K, and yet 50K over here, people are like just thankful they get paid to go race a dirt bike.
Yeah, well, I'm like, tomorrow I'll drive 2 hours one way so 200K.
Yep.
So in that day, I'll drive 4 hours in the car. I'll do my riding, come back, and then I'll leave at 5:30 tomorrow morning.
Yep.
So I'm back just after lunch, and then exact same thing to go up to the sunny coast the next day. So exactly like you said, because the Lawrences are from the sunny coast, and when I was younger, I lived at a track there with Ford Dale.
Okay.
And the Lawrences used to come out with young Hunter, who's on like at 85 now.
Okay.
So they've rode the tracks like around here that, like you said, we've got that mentality where we're just like, our tracks sometimes suck. They're so hard and baked. Like, I've got a place at Scotty Bennon's where it's just a private track. He rips it up and it's like a clay dirt and it's just awesome, you know. But then you can think when you go there in summer and it's not prepped, like there's no water facilities or anything. And I'll go there when I was racing in Europe. I was going there and doing 40-minute motos around there, and I'd shred a tire till there's canvas in 40 minutes.
Wow.
Like it's like concrete.
Yeah.
But when you're in Europe, you go to Arco de Trento, and the track is like riding a quarry. Like they don't rip it.
Yep.
It's honestly, it's like they've graded it, and they chuck a bit of water on after you've walked the track on Friday.
Yep. That's it.
Like in America, like the tracks are done just insane. They're putting water in for 3-4 days, and like the work that goes in, and that's what's so different and what I appreciate about the World Championship. I love America. I love everything about the place. You know, it's awesome. Like going to an event there is just insane. But from a rider's side of view, to race a World Championship, it's like 1 minute you're flying to the other side of the world in a country where if you crash, they're probably going to amputate your leg. Like, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, how about Ferris's deal in Brazil or whatever? Like, fucking gnarly.
Yeah, like gnarly stuff like that. And then the tracks are just no joke. Like, we raced Argentina, and then it was something like Lommel the weekend after, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. It's really hard to prepare for.
Well, and then think what you were saying. When you go to a track and it's perfectly prepped, and then it does start to dry out, it's windy. It's what happened to us yesterday when we were riding where we were at. We got there, it was muddy. The sun came out, the wind picked up, 4 bikes aired it out. It went from muddy to pristine to dry and slippery. Yeah. All in the course of 2 hours. Well, to me, if I have the privilege of working with you, I'm like, what do you do every hour? How are you adapting the bike? And there's a reason why I'm going here. If you can't tell me how we're going to adjust the compression and rebound, if you can't tell me how we're going to change air pressure and the tires and all that, there's a guy, and I'm not going to mention the team, and I'm not going to mention any of the colors. There's a guy right now that's complaining that his bike handles like a turd. And then when the mechanics ask him what, he says, I don't know, but I don't like it.
Yeah. We've been through this a bunch.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm like, can you imagine as a mechanic, you've got this spoiled
that's
little...
That's just like a fucking toddler. Don't like it. Yeah. That's all that is, eh?
And the guy's making a couple $1 million, and you're supposed to fix something that he can't articulate as wrong, and you're supposed to make what's wrong right, and the answer is always stiffer suspension and faster motors. Yeah. And in my world as a physiologist, especially with moto dads from hell, their thing is, well, you're just trying to sell me on your services. I'm like, no, I'm just telling you that if your son's already out of shape and you put stiffer suspension and a faster motor, it's only going to rear its ugly head even that much quicker, and you're probably going to get hurt. I would rather you say, if that kid can take stock suspension and you've got it wrung out and he's pinning that thing and he's waiting on it out of the corners, then go ahead and embellish it. But until then, fucking run stock and don't touch it beforehand. But I sound like the jerk. I sound like somebody that's on an agenda, and I'm like, no. I just want your son to bounce and not break when he hits the ground, and I want to be able to squeeze the bike and hold on to it through the acceleration and braking bumps. If you want to get mad at me for that, that's fine, but that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what you were saying. They won't go to a track if it's rough. They won't learn to adapt as a track changes, and then they go to the races and they get their asses kicked and then go, well, the bike doesn't handle right. That's always the answer. Or the trainer isn't working. You've always got an out. Accountability and responsibility.
You've always got those people. Like, I don't know if we've got many of them here, but
yeah, they exist.
Like you say, I know what you're saying, because at the end of the day, like our level's not too bad here in Australia.
No,
like,
it's fantastic.
Like at the moment, we've got, you know, how many Aussies around the world racing? Like World Championship,
like 15 of them or something at the moment.
Like it's a good time at the moment.
Cloudy got 5th on the weekend.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I think there'll be a paradigm shift, because they did go over and they've made a stamp, and they, you know, we're working with the Empire Kawasaki team right now, you know, with Jaden Rikers, and they've got Deacon Hillier. And it's interesting to watch those guys and their body language on the bike, and they've got really good equipment, and they've got a good program all the way around. There's no doubt that Jaden could be competitive over there. Yeah. It's just getting him to see it. You know what I mean? You've been there. It's that experience that nothing else is going to buy. Yeah. It's, you got to go submerge yourself in it, rub elbows with them, like you say, look to the left. When you're seeing a Crowley and a Hurling, and you're like, This is it. This is what that's why I was saying earlier, everybody wants it. And that's why I have a responsibility to all of our riders. I need to make sure you're mentally prepared to handle what we're physically training for. I use Loretta's all the time. We're not practicing starts to maybe get the whole shot. But then how many kids come out of the woods at Loretta's? They sweep into the in and the out, and then we come out of what's called the woods into the 10 Commandments after the right-hander, left-hander, back into... And the kid shits himself because he's never led a race before, but his dad bought him a $20,000 dirt bike that's faster than anything else on the gate. And he comes out like he's completely shell-shocked because he's never been there before.
Because he doesn't belong there in his own mind.
Right. And so for me, I'm always trying to get the brain to keep up with the physical adaptation. When we're looking at fitness, you have got to look at the realm of fitness. Fitness has both a positive and a negative. There's a positive adaptation. The body gets fitter and faster, but there's also a negative. There's fatigue. You were talking about earlier, when we're doing tapering programs, our goal is to maintain fitness but shed fatigue. That's that fine line that you were talking about earlier. Well, when we get into a race like that at that level, especially for you every weekend, every other weekend, it's the brain being able to handle the higher levels of performance ability with the absence of fatigue, because the absence of fatigue gets us into that mode where, all right, it's just kind of the grind of going through it. All of a sudden you shed that, almost like you just take and you remove that outer shell, and inside is that sweet spot. Well, that's what we all long for on race day, is to have that sweet spot. But when all of a sudden you shed that fatigue, most people mentally can't handle that extra level of performance because they don't experience it enough. If I take him and I train him chronically to be fatigued all the time, I want the listeners to understand he's riding in a state of fatigue, which is going to limit his ability to process higher rates of speed. It's a speed rut. You've got to shed fatigue at the right times. That's why I'm so anal about when I ask for a 90-minute bike ride, please make it 90, not 2.5 hours, because you've increased the residual fatigue level. And when it comes to your quality days, I'm never going to be able to get it out of you. Sum it up in you're going too hard on your easy days, leaving you below your capabilities on your quality days. But that doesn't make me popular. Now, if I sit here and scream at him and call him names and tell me he needs to push it and blah, blah, now it's all about me. I look good.
But that's where I found more, because you're obviously structuring out weeks and months and, periods, like training blocks. So
yes, sir.
That's probably where the athletes go on, oh, today's a 90-minute. Like, they're only looking at that.
That's right.
That's where I think myself realizing and learning about that more, that it's a week. This is how many minutes for the week,
Residual fatigue.
And then I've got a 4-week block where this many minutes, this many, then it drops down. So then it creates, like, this is where you start and it goes builds over your 4 weeks, drops, but not down there, like it's up a bit and then it builds. And
we refer to that as incremental improvement. You should be at least 1% to 2% better at the end of that 4-week training block, using your example, than you were when you started it. The problem is, and I understand from an athlete's perspective, they're only looking at today, which is why the relationship between a human performance coach and an athlete, he has to be comfortable to ask me why, and I have to be knowledgeable enough to answer his question why, and put it in a format that he understands it and begins to trust it. Then when he begins to trust it, that's when you get a world champion on your hands. Yeah.
Because the biggest thing that I've noticed is, obviously I've been lucky enough to ride in teams and stuff and experience this kind of stuff, but exactly like you said, these parents and stuff are spending all this money on bikes and stuff, and what's the kid doing? Like, has anyone told him that, hey man, like, maybe sit on the ground and do a bit of stretching while you watch TV?
Exactly.
Like, it will help you a lot.
Yep.
Because when you get to like 23 years old or 22 years old, when I found out that, hey, stretching's good, and I'm going
exactly,
hours and hours and weeks and months to get it happening.
Well, and if I met Todd at 16, I don't tell him to stretch. I show him how it improves his body position on the bike. When you look at flexibility, you have the skin, you have the fascia, and the muscles. So if I use foam rolling and I break any adhesions down, let's put that back into Todd's world. If you decide to run down the street and I'm holding onto your shirt, I'm creating a lot of internal friction. Core body temperature goes up, you're going to run slower because I'm holding onto you, and you won't run as far because you're going to be fatigued quicker. Well, if I can say to Todd at 16, here's how foam rolling will increase your sprint speed, decrease your core body temperature, and improve endurance, You don't think a 16-year-old that wants to be a world champion is going to foam roll? But tell any 16-year-old kid to foam roll and not tell them why and see how much you get out of it.
Man.
You know?
Yeah.
And like I said, now at 26, you can't reach your toes. Yeah. That's my mission as a company, as a person, is to try to have more 16-year-olds with this type of talent that doesn't have to go and be a Red Bull rider, but has the information available to them. What I find most staggering, and we talked about this on the way back from the airport today, is how I have to sit there and constantly just browbeat.
Drill it in.
Yeah, and again, I don't want anybody just to take my word for it. Challenge me on it, please do. But when we validate it, you've seen it, you've experienced it, you can now touch your toes for the first time in a year. You understand what you did because you now can evaluate the result. Please keep doing what you were doing. That's what we were talking about, self-sabotage. Seeing somebody, we've worked with some young riders in the 85 class, get them into a pro rig, and then they've got lots of money. They don't want to listen to my voice anymore.
Yeah, madness.
And now,
that's crazy. Yeah.
Now they're not getting re-signed this year. And it guts me because I'm like, you were making X amount of dollars. You could have gone X plus another 20%. You literally be a millionaire at 17.
Yeah.
I can't beg you to become a millionaire. I said this on the show last time. It's just, and for somebody who doesn't know the background, they're like, oh, he's just being cocky. I'm not being cocky. I have people that make hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Motocross is our smallest. It's the least lucrative, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't care about last names on the back of the jersey. What I care about is, can I increase your speed, increase your endurance, and increase your longevity as an athlete? Whether you're a weekend warrior or whether you're a pro athlete like Todd, what frustrates me is people will self-sabotage themselves. It's like, look, you made a few adjustments, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. You're sleeping better, your sleep scores are better, your sleep cycles are improving, the duration of deep sleep's improving. We know what you've done, and you simply choose not to do it. Accountability and responsibility.
You can't fix stupid.
That's Jordan Bailey's dad's favorite comment. You can't fix stupid.
Well, hey boys, we've done 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Nice.
No, I've got another question.
All right, keep going. You got to go to bed, mate.
Yeah, I know. But what's your thoughts? Because you talk a lot about protein and stuff, and that's like, diets, as we know, is quite important. So this game changer thing. Have you seen that Netflix TV show?
I in transparency, I have not seen it, but I've been inundated with questions about it. So go ahead.
Yeah. So everyone who is kind of upcoming and whatever, they're straight away asking me questions like, "Oh man, we want to be healthy, so we're going on the vegan diet, this and that." And I'm like, "Oh, so you don't want to be healthy?"
Yeah.
They're like, "What do you mean?" And when people refer to plant-based diets, it's because I want to be healthy, and I'm like, have you seen someone on a plant-based diet for more than 12 months? They almost look like a cancer victim.
That's right.
It's true. They look yellow in the face and they get quite, I'd like to see them in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
But
they won't be alive, but I get your point.
I wanted to ask your experience on that, because obviously I just go off like I said, I break a leg so I know what bone that is. That's why. Yeah. I've got no research behind anything.
Until it gets to the very end and you have to pay attention to it, cell, tissue, organ system. Yeah. Until it's broke, you're not going to pay attention to it. It's like no disrespect to Michaela, but it's like a female in a car. As long as I turn the key and it cranks, I don't care. But as soon as I turn the key and it doesn't crank, there's a problem. I got to fix it, right? I got to call somebody. Well, the big thing is, and I agree with you 100%, I'm not a big fan of plant-based for everybody. And the reason why I put it in that context is most people say, oh, well, he's an elite athlete, he needs it. No, everybody needs the amino acids that you get out of animal products. Yeah. If you look at a complete protein, the egg is indexed at 100%. We talked about this on the last show. So when you look at the amino acid profile of something and they say steak has I'm just using a very loose percentage, has 86. It means that that piece of steak has 86% of the amino acids found in an egg. An egg is indexed at 100%. That's why we advocate eggs so much. Yep. So if we may use the word, area of debate is the amount of food that you have to eat in a plant-based environment to get a complete protein is enormous, first and foremost. We've already talked in today's show, the idea that the average individual, when your watch is burning 5,000-6,000 calories, and you're eating chicken,
You'd have
salmon.
to eat spinach that would fill this room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's on a daily basis.
And that's like, because gorillas eat plants for fucking 17 hours a day. They have like a huge bone on the top of their head that their jaw muscles have to connect to, because their fucking jaws eat that much. Like, it's like, that's the reason that they got it, eh?
Yeah.
And like, I always think whenever anyone talks about vegan shit, I'm like, all right, this is in my retarded brain. We're the only species on Earth that has figured out how to use fire, and then we've used fire to cook meat, so that meat is easier to chew.
Yeah.
We're also the smartest motherfuckers on the planet, and we're the only ones that can use fire. We're the only ones that can cook meat, and we're the top of the food chain. Like, I just don't think that that's any coincidence.
No.
Yeah.
And it goes back, like you're saying, how much food do those apes eat? And it's a full-time job, 17 hours a day.
17 hours, man, and then they sleep. They eat leaves, then they sleep.
But
we don't have to. Sorry.
Go for it, bro.
But we can eat one steak, cook that fucking thing. It takes 15 minutes. If it's medium rare, you can chew the bastard in 5. So in 20 minutes, you can eat the intake of what takes a gorilla 16 hours.
Probably more.
Who's fucking dumb? The gorilla is dumb. Like that, and that's the way that I get my head around the vegan shit.
Well, and
but these days, these days, you can get supplements. Like, you can pull it off. But like, there's fucking...
Yeah, but like, my argument is, like, these are kids coming to me who want to be world champion, right?
Don't ask you. What do you know?
No, but that's what they're saying. They're like, hey, like, you know, and I'm saying, well, first of all, you're here and your dad's here, you know, you're going to go back to here, and then you're going to have to try and work out how you're going to get better than your dad.
Well, if
just
you
a
look
normal
at
person,
the problem I have with all these, whether it's keto or whether it's super, you know, when you look at the fitness side, you have, you know, go back superset, super slow, then it's P90X, Insanity. If that's just in the exercise, now it's
Tybo,
CrossFit. Yeah. Tybo, yep. I always forget about it. I'm going to remember that one.
Tybo, that fucking, wasn't that the black dude?
Yeah,
that stood there
super
and
buff.
made like the DVDs. Yeah.
And then if you look at the nutritional side, you have low fat, no fat, you know, you have high fat, no fat. I mean, it's just, there's so many spin-offs on it. Now, of course, the latest and greatest is keto, intermittent fasting / keto. Well, if we go back to the subject in the teeter-totter analogy, all you're doing is adding more stress to a system. We just talked tonight that you were weighing your food and you realized, hey, wait, I'm kind of getting my responsibilities as an athlete. Now you're going to add strictly plant-based diet. There's another trainer that you know very well who's very anti-gluten. Well, I can sit here and say, go gluten-free. That's easy to say. It's a lot of work. I can say, don't eat any raw sugar. That's easy to say, but hard to do. I don't live in a glass house. I've said this every show that I've been on with you. Try not to live in a bed, because like you said earlier, where's the balance? Where's the fun?
Yeah.
If these Europeans are eating waffles, that'd make some of our listeners cringe, like, oh my gosh, he's eating a white starch. Oh my gosh, he's going to die. This is Crowley, right? He's not dying.
Dude,
he's doing quite well.
People smoke meth and are still alive. I'm pretty sure you can eat fucking gluten and meat.
Yep.
Like, for real.
No, I'm super interested in that, because I just can't get my head around, because as soon as I seen it and heard about it, I was just like, oh, what, this isn't for me, because I'm trying to be an elite athlete and I don't want to disadvantage myself.
Right.
Like I've got my sort of level here of all the little things that I do and what I've found, like weighing the food, like maybe not for me, this and that. And I'm thinking from here, I'm going to go and weigh myself and do that sort of stuff and try and improve my eating before bed I want to nail that sleeping side of things, you know, to then go, hang on a second, I'm going to cut out all meat. First of all, if I've got a race in Tasmania and I go to a restaurant and it ain't no vegan restaurant, like, I'm done. That adds pressures for me race on Sunday.
Oh, massive, dude.
Like, it just seems, and then these kids are wanting to go to Europe. That's a nightmare.
And the thing is with that game, I haven't watched a Game Changer documentary. I refuse to watch it. But like, who are they talking to? The fucking top making multi millions of dollars, like all those guys, they can do what they want.
Yeah.
Well,
Like when you've got that much money and you're like at that pointy end of sport, you can literally do whatever you want.
But
and you
the
can
problem
make
I
it
have
work.
is, are they really doing it?
Yeah,
That's
who
the problem
knows?
I have, because like we had a guy that came to us and was doing keto. He's paying X amount of dollars per month for these little envelopes of food, and it's 400 calories. That's all he's allowed to eat per day. Now let's back up and look at what he's doing. He's first of all eating out of an envelope, so that's synthetic. Somebody in a manufacturing plant had to make it. It's 400 calories. He's only allowed to eat that all day long to keep his body in a state of ketosis. I get it. Like we said, there's a difference between surviving and thriving. If you look at if you watch the show Survivor, they're trying to survive, no pun intended, and they all look emaciated and they look horrible. Is that the state you want to go to a World Cup with? No. So if you back up and you say, okay, this guy's eating a envelope of food that he mixes, and then he has to take 25 supplements with it. What do you think the supplements are doing? Making up for what you're not eating.
Yeah, what you should just be
And
eating,
supplements
yeah.
are synthetic to begin with. I own my own supplement business, as I said earlier. Don't take them until you realize you're not getting enough fill in the blank. B6, B12, iron, fish oil, whatever. That's where supplementation comes in. So what I get concerned about with these agenda shows is it's exactly it. There's some agenda behind it. Whether it's...
Well, they all had... all the people that were on that Game Changers, they all own like vegan supplement companies, vegan food companies. They had published vegan books. Like all of these people.
See, I hadn't even heard that, but that makes sense.
No, yeah, they all, every fucking person. It's not like some dude, the dude that made Game Changers, wasn't some random dude that genuinely wanted to know. And he interviewed this side and he interviewed this side and then he met in the middle and said, this is what I think. It was like, everybody from this side. Let's take everybody from this side that supports our argument and let's interview them and let's make the biggest, most sexy argument for why everybody should be vegan, and then let's put that on Netflix. And then it'll be controversial because we didn't include anybody on this side. So then you're going to get all the people from this side saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it just brings all of this attention back to this. And then, but in the film, and then what happens is you go, yeah, go watch it. And then it's just the people that are on this side. So yeah,
It's an agenda.
It's not the right way to get information. And like I'd say to anyone that would change their diet based off a fucking Netflix documentary, you're an idiot.
Well,
you need more information than something like you. Yeah.
Well, like you say,
You
show me the amino acids that you're taking out, because that's what we get from our animal products for the most part.
Yep.
And look at those amino acids, and where else are you going to find them? If you're a lacto-ovo vegetarian and you're going to do eggs and you're going to, great. But if you're going to go strict vegan, and it's kind of interesting, if you look at cholesterol only comes from animal products. And if you look like 15 years ago, everything was anti-cholesterol. When you go down the cereal aisle and it says cholesterol-free on a box of Cheerios, last time I checked, I don't remember there being any meat in Cheerios. But every box of cereal had cholesterol-free on it.
Yeah.
It was an agenda.
Yeah.
That's the new sexy fad.
Oh, like unsaturated, polyunsaturated.
The unsaturated fats,
And then you get
cholesterol.
all that no salt. It's like we fucking need salt.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have salt, then you can't
don't change anything.
Yeah.
Raw fruits, raw vegetables, lean protein. Now, if you want to get your protein from tofu, cool. But get it from tofu and a little bit of fish and a little bit of meat, chicken and beef. Make it well-rounded. If we go back to the beginning of our podcast today, you go back to the cellular health. I want to see, to your point though, Todd, I want to see blood work of somebody who went strict vegan, and I want to see it every 3 months. That's what we do with our clients. That's what we request at least if I get blood work every 3 months, and if there's a deficiency, I've only got to tweak 12 weeks. I know what your training log looks like. I pretty much know what your food log looks like. The blood work is an end result of those two columns. Fix it. I want to see a strict vegan 3, 12, and 18 months later. I want to see blood health. Don't give me this garbage about cholesterol and this and all the platforms that they advocate it. You will see an epidemic. I said this in your last show. You know how many people we pick up that are a fallout from Insanity, P90X, now CrossFit?
Yeah.
You know how many people we've picked up from Zone, Atkins, South Beach, all these eating plans, and we always bring them and put them right back in the same four corners.
Yeah.
Walk into the store, eat the perimeter, get out.
Yeah.
Eat every 2 hours. Don't let yourself get hungry. That answers the question of how much. If you got hungry, you need to eat more.
Yeah.
If the quality is good, perimeter of the store, fruits, vegetables, and lean protein, and you eat every 2 hours and you're not hungry, so you're stabilizing blood sugars, you're done.
Yeah.
Now go exercise, go live, be free, fly kites, go. Just, it's so simple, but we want to convolute the simplistic.
Yeah.
And when you get to elite level performance, it really doesn't change. If you're hungry within 2 hours, you're burning more than you're consuming, bump it up till you're not hungry. Take body composition every 6 weeks so you know you're building muscle and dropping body fat. But it's not sexy to sell that. It's too simple.
Yeah.
We'll keep pushing the agenda. We're going to keep pushing the message. I like that was a good one on that. No, do not do the strict vegan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like it because I seem to be the only one fighting that.
Well,
I got you, bro.
yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. We're on it.
Righto. Thanks so much, Rob.
Thanks, guys.
Anytime you're in the studio is
Thank you so
is a
much.
treat. I'm glad it was cool to get you two guys to get together too. Hopefully you learned some stuff, Todd.
Yeah.
Bit
Yep,
more
I've got a
confused,
few
maybe.
more questions to ask.
That would be
after
perfect.
The show. It'd
We'll
good.
be here.
Yeah, sounds
Thanks
good.
very much for coming, Rob.
Oh, thanks for having
Thanks
us.
everyone for listening, and we'll have Rob Beams back on the show the next time he's in the country.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. See you guys.
Take care.